Chapter 744. Song Jining looked at Kai Songyin coldly and suppressed her anger. She said dryly, "You've got the wrong person. I'm not Mrs. Hua." With that, she walked around Kai Songyin to leave. Kai Songyin immediately understood and quickly grabbed Song Jining's arm. She smiled apologetically and said, "Director Song, it's my fault. I was really too busy today. There were so many media outlets and so many important people attending this inauguration. I was really too busy. Please forgive me. Please forgive me." Kai Songyin smiled apologetically, but she didn't think much of it. What kind of status did the Hua family have? In front of the Hua family, the Song family was nothing. What's more, Song Jining's father, Song Haichuan, passed away 17 years ago. So what if he was posthumously recognized as a hero? There was no one left in the Song family. Kai Songyin had thought that Song Jining definitely wanted to get back together with Hua Guanchen and wanted to help her. That was why she had addressed her as Mrs. Hua. She didn't expect Song Jining to be so hypocritical. Not only did she deny it, but she also gave her an unpleasant look in front of others. If it wasn't for her daughter's lifelong happiness, Kai Songyin really didn't want to have anything to do with Song Jining. Who would want to stand beside such a vixen? Kai Songyin had hired a professional organization to investigate Hua Xiaoheng's family for the sake of her daughter Tang Gairen's marriage. Therefore, she knew that Song Jining's real age was 49 years old and would soon turn 50. She was 2 years older than Kai Songyin. But looking at her now, she looked like an immortal fairy after plastic surgery. She looked even younger than her daughter. Song Jining's waist was so slender and her legs were so long. The curve of her fishtail skirt perfectly accentuated her S-shaped figure. Her skin was as tender as white jade. Even at such a close distance, there were no flaws. Her skin was even more delicate than Tang Gairen's. Kai Songyin had always thought that although she was old, she was still voluptuous and cute. However, standing next to Song Jining, who had undergone plastic surgery, made her look like an old maid. Kai Songyin truly despised such a vain woman from the bottom of her heart. However, this kind of vain woman had given birth to a good son. For the sake of her daughter, she had no choice but to feign civility. 09 small say net. Although Kai Songyin was thinking that, she didn't show it at all on her face. She continued to hold Song Jining's hand warmly and said, "Director Song, please be magnanimous and forgive someone like me who doesn't mean what I said." Kai Songyin was so submissive, but Song Jining was completely unmoved. Song Jining freed her hand from Kai Songyin's grasp and said calmly, "You're overthinking it." She was about to walk out as she spoke. Kai Songyin had no choice but to drag her daughter over. "Little darling, this is Director Song. Quickly come and help mommy apologize to Director Song." Tang Guiren kept sneaking glances at Song Jining. From her face, it could be seen that Hua Xiaoheng's handsome features were inherited from her, but Hua Xiaoheng's strong features were inherited from his father, Hua Guanchen. In short, he had the best features of his parents and was blessed by nature. Therefore, she had a very good impression of Song Jining. Without Kai Songyin saying it a second time, she had already said sweetly, "Hello, Director Song." She then said, "You take good care of yourself. If there's a chance in the future, can I ask you for some tips on taking care of yourself?" As soon as Song Jining saw Tang Guiren, she recalled listening to Fan Jian and Little Ning chatting in the car about how the Special Operations Forces went to New York to rescue Tang Guiren. Although they didn't say who went to rescue her, Song Jining was so smart that she was able to verify what Hua Xiaoheng had said with just a few words. She was able to make up the entire story in her head. Therefore, as soon as she saw Tang Guiren, it was as if she had seen an enemy who wanted her son's life. However, the education she had received since she was young prevented her from speaking ill of Tang Guiren. However, she completely ignored Tang Guiren and didn't even say a polite word. The atmosphere in the private room instantly became awkward. Kai Songyin gave the people in the private room a look. The relatives of the Tan family and the Kai family who came in earlier all found an excuse to leave. Before they left, they even closed the door of the private room. Only the Huas, Song Jining, Kai Songyin and Tang Guiren were left in the private room. Kai Songyin looked at her watch. There was still half an hour before the Prime Minister's inauguration officially began. It was time for the reception, so it was a good time for everyone to socialize. She wanted to take this opportunity to have a good talk with Song Jining and leave a good impression for her daughter in front of her future mother-in-law. Unfortunately, Song Jining refused to budge. Kai Songyin could only look at Hua Guanchen, grandfather Hua, and Hua Jialan in hopes that they could help smooth things over. Hua Jialan's expression was a bit strange, but she still walked over to Song Jining and said, "Second aunt, you've always been tolerant. You wouldn't make things difficult for Miss Tan, right?" Song Jining looked at Hua Jialan coldly and looked away. She said bluntly, I'm not your second aunt. Don't pretend to be close to me. I remember you didn't even save your own mother. Don't pretend to be a good person and help others out. Hua Jialan's face drained of all color. Her lips trembled and her eyes filled with tears. She covered her face and ran away. Sitting next to Grandfather Hua, she cried silently. Grandfather Hua glanced at her and remembered the cause of Hua Jialan's mother's death. He also felt a bit disgusted, so he didn't say anything to stop her. He sat alone drinking tea and watching the show. Hua Guanchen saw that Song Jining was being ridiculous and walked over to help Tan Guirin out. He said, Jining, Prime Minister Tan's only daughter, Miss Tan Guirin, is smart, obedient and very filial. He then said to Kai Songyin, Mrs. Tan, you're lucky to have a daughter like her. Kai Songyin's stiff face finally broke into a smile. She hadn't chosen the wrong person. Hua Guanchen was elegant, humble and smooth with words. He cared about his reputation in front of others. On the other hand, although Song Jining was so beautiful that she didn't look like a real person, her way of handling things was terrible. She was also so straightforward and offended people. No wonder Hua Guanchen liked her daughter, Tan Guirin. Kai Songyin smiled and returned the compliment. General Hua, you're too kind. Director Song, you take good care of yourself. We're the same age, but look at me and then look at you. No one would believe me if I told them. I really couldn't tell you had such an old son. When I first saw you, I thought you were some popular celebrity. Oh, that's not right. Which popular star has a face like yours? Even plastic surgery can't compare to you. Song Jining ignored the sarcasm in Kai Songyin's words and said with a smile, My son is filial and capable. I don't need to worry about him. Of course I look young. She glanced at Tan Guirin again and said to Kai Songyin without mincing words, Your daughter is too stubborn. She harms others and herself and burdens her family and country. No wonder you look older than your actual age. I hope you can discipline your daughter well in the future. Don't just focus on being on the top searches every day. Don't get innocent people killed. Everyone has parents to raise them. There's no such thing as who's nobler or whose life is more valuable. Her words were so harsh that the smile on Kai Songyin's face fell like the mottled cement on a wall. Tan Guirin's expression changed. She was so ashamed that she wanted to find a hole to hide in. She forced herself not to cry on the spot. She could tell that Song Jining was talking about her kidnapping in the United States, but she was also a victim in that incident. Hua Xiao's mother probably didn't know yet, so she didn't hate Song Jining. Hua Guanchen felt like he had been slapped in the face. He had just praised Tan Guirin for being obedient and filial, but Song Jining opposed him and said she was too stubborn. Jining, what's wrong with you today? Did you eat medicine? Hua Guanchen said unhappily. You should save her some face and say she's your junior. Miss Tan is so obedient. How is she being stubborn? I'm saving them face, but who's saving my son's life? Hua Guanchen, if you don't even care about your son's life, don't blame me for depriving you of my son's father-son relationship. Song Jining was furious and pointed at Hua Guanchen's nose. You say she's obedient? Her father is running for prime minister, so why didn't she return to the country as required by law? You say this isn't being stubborn? Forgive my poor eyesight, but I can't see how this kind of person is obedient and filial. You? Hua Guanchen was furious. He clenched his fists and said angrily, Xiaoheng is a soldier. To protect the country. Protecting our citizens is his responsibility. Even if he dies, it's for the country and its people. Don't smear Xiaoheng's name. I'm smearing Xiaoheng's name? Song Jining couldn't help but sneer. No matter how well-mannered she was still angered by Hua Guanchen. Soldiers are also people. A soldier can't sacrifice his precious life for someone who wants to die. If many innocent people were to be hurt, I wouldn't stop my son. But I won't feel it's worth it for my son to die for those people who want to die and whine about nothing. If there's a chance, I'll make these unreasonable people pay for my son's life. Song Jining, you're going too far. Hua Guanchen almost roared. I can go even further for my son. Song Jining retorted, unwilling to be outdone. Tan Guirin finally burst into tears and bowed to Song Jining. I'm sorry. Director Song, it's all my fault. I'm sorry. Kai Songyin's heart ached. She hugged her, patted her, and comforted her like she was a 3-year-old. She said repeatedly, Little darling, don't cry. Little darling, don't cry. It's not your fault. Don't feel guilty. Song Jining couldn't stand it anymore and said unhappily, Mrs. Tan, is this how you teach your child? You can't even tell right from wrong. No wonder your daughter is so willful. Kai Songyin couldn't stand it anymore and said mockingly, "Director Song, may I ask if you're mistaken? It was your son who saved my daughter? Your son won't admit it?" She was still brooding over what Hua Xiaoheng said on the phone that day. Song Jining wasn't moved at all. Her long brows furrowed slightly, and she said with a serious expression, "Did I say it was my son who saved her? I was fighting for the justice of the nameless soldiers who sacrificed themselves silently. Also, you guys aren't truly repentant right now. Instead of feeling ashamed, you're proud of it. It's hard to guarantee that you won't harm my son in the future. I'll be blunt today. Don't look for my son for anything in the future. He's a major general of the nation, not your family's private bodyguard. If you guys dare to bother my son with personal matters again, I'll go to the Senate and ask, is the Prime Minister using special privileges considered abusing his power for personal gain? Should the Senate impeach him? Do you believe that I'll immediately propose impeachment proceedings to the Senate and make your husband the first Prime Minister in history to be impeached on his first day in office? This is the second update, and the monthly votes are 6,900 plus updates. Don't forget your recommendation votes, dear ones. The third update at 7 p.m. Whether or not there will be a fourth update today depends on the monthly votes. I don't think it'll be that fast. The double monthly votes are continuing. Don't stop, dear ones. Chapter 745. When the time comes, your husband's name will go down in history. You don't have to thank me too much. I've always been easy to talk to. Don't hold grudges and repay evil with good. Song Jining finished in one breath and felt the resentment in her chest slowly dissipate. Song Jining was scared to think that she, as his mother, didn't know anything when Hua Xiaoheng was in danger. She was obsessed with scientific research, but her love for her son was no less than her love for scientific research. Both were existences that could make her give up her life. Hearing Song Jining say that, Kai Songyin completely gave up on trying to build a good relationship with her. Director Song, it's meaningless to say that. Our family has never troubled your son. Even if something happens in the future, it will definitely be business. Don't worry. Kai Songyin glanced at Hua Guanchen as she spoke. Hua Guanchen nodded slightly at her, indicating that she should stop talking to Song Jining. We still have things to do today, so we won't disturb you. Please help yourselves. Kai Songyin's neck stiffened as she quickly nodded twice and dragged Tanguiren out. Tanguiren's eyes were swollen from crying. She kept asking, "Mommy, why did Director Song say it was my fault? I didn't mean it. I didn't know those people would kidnap me. If I knew, I would definitely come back on time." Mommy knows. Mommy knows. Our little darling is the best. Don't listen to that Song's nonsense. She's just jealous. All women with sons are like that. Don't take it to heart. Kai Songyin tried her best to comfort Tanguiren. Tanguiren gradually stopped crying and wiped her tears with a tissue. She sobbed, "Mommy, don't try to persuade me. I know it's my fault. What do I have that Director Song is jealous of? She looks even younger than me. Why are you so stubborn?" Kai Songyin spoiled her daughter very much and couldn't bear to say anything harsh to her. To cheer her up, she blurted out, "Director Song must be so mean to you because Hua Xiao likes you. Seeing that she's about to lose her son, she's mentally upset." "Yes, that's it." "Really?" Tanguiren was embarrassed. "But Hua Xiao has a girlfriend. Why would he like me? Even if Director Song is angry, wouldn't she be angry at Hua Xiao's girlfriend?" Kai Songyin snorted and her eyes turned cold. She wouldn't let Song Jining's anger go to waste. Sooner or later she would return the favor. For the sake of her daughter's lifelong happiness, she could tolerate Song Jining's rudeness, but Hua Xiao's girlfriend, Gu Nianji, was not so lucky. If she was willing to break up with Hua Xiaoheng, she would let her go. If she didn't know what was good for her and had delusions of marrying Hua Xiaoheng, then she would be sorry. Kai Songyin was already full of energy. She wanted to vent all the anger and humiliation she had suffered at Song Jining's hands on Gu Nianji. She had also investigated Gu Nianji and discovered that she was merely an adopted daughter of the Gu family. Gu Yanran, the biological daughter of the Gu family, had a very subtle attitude toward her younger sister. Kai Songyin planned to win over Gu Yanran first before dealing with Gu Nianji. No matter what, anyone who stood in her daughter's way to happiness was her enemy. Although Song Jining had said all sorts of nasty things earlier, there was one thing that Kai Songyin deeply agreed with. She would do anything for her child. "Alright, don't think too much about it. Mommy will help you settle it. You just have to be good and listen to me." Kai Songyin lovingly caressed Tanguiren's face. "Go to the dressing room over there and find someone to apply some medicine to your eyes. They're so swollen. It won't look good on camera later."
Okay, mommy.
Tan Guirin nodded obediently and didn't dare to be willful anymore. She had only been willful once in her entire life, and she almost didn't make it back alive. But she didn't regret it. If she hadn't been willful that time, she wouldn't have met such a good man like Hua Xiaoheng. After Kai Songyin and Tan Guirin left, Song Jining also wanted to leave. She really didn't want to stay in the same room as Hua Guanchen. To her, divorced people were strangers who didn't interact with each other anymore. Don't pretend to be friends with divorced people. At least not where she was. However, Hua Guanchen stopped her and clenched his fists in frustration. Jining, don't go. Sit down and let's talk. Song Jining only repeated 2 words. Mo. She didn't say anything unnecessary. Hua Guanchen looked at her in pain and whispered, Jining, how much longer are you going to be angry? Song Jining didn't look back and continued walking forward as she said, I'm not angry. As long as you don't mess with my son, I'm not angry at all. What she meant was that if you mess with my son, then you'll be angry at all kinds of things. That's still my son. Hua Guanchen growled in a low voice. Why would I hurt him? Jining, you're a scientist. You're always in the lab and don't know the ways of the world. I don't know the ways of the world? Song Jining turned around and looked at Hua Guanchen coldly. Isn't that so? How did you treat Mrs. Tan just now? Do you think you're just trying to win with words? Before Hua Guanchen could finish, Song Jining interrupted him. She tilted her head up and chuckled. Why don't you think that way? I don't want to use the ways of the world on them. Because they don't deserve it. As she spoke, she extended her index finger and waved it at Hua Guanchen. You don't deserve it either. Song Jining turned around gracefully, her fishtail skirt drawing a perfect arc in the air. Like the ebbing waves of the ocean, it revealed the hidden treasures at the bottom of the ocean. Hua Guanchen looked at Song Jining's back and felt that even her back view was so beautiful it made his heart ache. How did he manage to lose such a beautiful woman? Hua Guanchen hugged his head and sat down on the sofa weakly. Song Jining came out of the private room and looked around. Then she walked straight to where General Ji and Speaker Long were sitting. Half an hour was almost up. The waiters were cleaning up the wine glasses and arranging the tables and chairs. The inauguration ceremony was about to begin. General Ji, Speaker Long, you guys are having such a lively conversation. I wonder if I can sit here? She pointed to a seat next to Speaker Long. Speaker Long smiled and nodded. Have a seat. There's no one here. General Ji asked Song Jining with concern, Director Song, where was your seat originally? Song Jining smiled and shook her head. In the private room with the Hua family. You know that Guanchen and I divorced a long time ago. How could I have the nerve to be in the same room with them, so I came out. Why did they arrange the seats like that? That's so inconsiderate. I'll help you talk to them if I get the chance in the future. The people in the Prime Minister's office are so careless. General Ji complained and wanted to call Prime Minister Tan Dongbang immediately. Song Jining guessed that the mother and daughter were crying to Tan Dongbang, so she took the initiative and said to Speaker Long, Speaker Long, I just had an argument with Mrs. Tan. I'm a little worried now. Will she tell Prime Minister Tan pillow talk and find an opportunity to trip us up in the future? Will she purposely cut the institute's funding? You would argue with someone? Speaker Long and General Ji laughed together. That's something I have to tell you. Why would you argue with someone? In their impression, Song Jining had only argued with people over scientific data for decades. She had never argued with anyone over anything else. Kai Songyin wasn't someone from the academic world, so General Ji and Speaker Long couldn't figure out why Song Jining would argue with Kai Songyin. Song Jining spread her hands and sighed. What else could she argue about? Of course it was for my son Xiaoheng. They were too disrespectful to him. As a mother, I couldn't stand it, so I said a few words to her and she angrily dragged her daughter away. General Ji and Speaker Long looked at each other and vaguely knew what Kai Songyin was planning. General Ji narrowed his eyes. He had previously been at odds with Hua Xiaoheng because of Gu Nianji's parentage. It wasn't that he looked down on Gu Nianji being an adopted daughter, but he was angry that Hua Xiaoheng had hidden the truth from him. After Hua Xiaoheng's explanation, he finally understood that he hadn't intentionally hidden the truth from him. Someone was purposely sowing discord. After that, General Ji trusted Hua Xiaoheng even more. Also, he knew that Hua Xiaoheng had even submitted the marriage report and passed the background check. It would be a matter of minutes for him to marry Gu Nianji. Wouldn't it be stupid to interfere at a time like this? Also, if Hua Xiaoheng really abandoned Gu Nianji for the Prime Minister's daughter, General Ji would be very disappointed and wouldn't dare to promote such a person. So General Ji was watching coldly from the sidelines this time and would never get involved. Ever since Speaker Long's matchmaking failed last time, He didn't want to get involved even more. Not to mention that Hua Xiaoheng's biological mother had stepped in this time. Who had the right to speak like his biological mother? Therefore, both of them said, if the Institute of High Energy Physics funding is restricted because of personal matters, you can come to us directly. Speaker Long even said, if Tan Dongbang dares to do this, our impeachment process won't be easy to deal with either. It was the third night watch. Dear friends, don't forget your recommendation votes. It's already 2 o'clock in the middle of the night here, and the monthly votes are still a little short, so there won't be a fourth night watch today. Dear friends, come back tomorrow for the third night watch. Mwah. The double monthly votes are continuing. Dear friends, don't stop. Chapter 746. Song Jining let out an obvious sigh of relief. She looked at Speaker Long with her starry eyes and said solemnly, Speaker Long, I will remember what you said. If our Institute of High Energy Physics funding is blocked by someone in the future, I can only ask you for help. Speaker Long nodded repeatedly and agreed immediately. No problem. The matters of the Institute of High Energy Physics are also matters of national importance. Besides, Prime Minister Tan isn't someone who doesn't know what's important. Song Jining laughed softly. I hope Prime Minister Tan can live up to your expectations and truly have the bearing of a Prime Minister of a great nation. At that moment, Tan Dongbang and Kai Songyin were in the VIP room of the National Center of Performing Arts, making their final preparations. They were about to step out of the room and onto the stage for the inauguration ceremony. Xiaoli, go see how little darling is doing. It's about to start, so tell her to hurry up. Kai Songyin discreetly sent Tan Dongbang's personal assistant away. Only Tan Dongbang and his wife were left in the VIP room. Kai Songyin saw that there was no one else around and finally told them about the disagreement she had with Song Jining in the private room. After she finished, she said with a gloomy expression, What should we do? It wasn't easy for Nan to take a fancy to someone and we all agreed, but this future mother-in-law is really too terrible. The relationship between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law had been unresolvable since ancient times. Kai Songyin herself had never encountered this kind of problem because she and Tan Dongbang were childhood friends. Their families were well matched and the two families knew each other very well. Tan Dongbang's mother had always loved Kai Songyin. Tan Dongbang's mother had passed away due to illness only a few years after she and Tan Dongbang had been married, so she had never personally experienced the relationship between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. However, she had heard many terrifying rumors about it from her close friends. Today she saw that Song Jining was not only beautiful but also aggressive. Her words were like knives stabbing people's hearts. How could her little sheep-like daughter fight against such a mother-in-law? For a moment, Kai Songyin almost wanted to persuade Tan Guirin to back out. However, Tan Dongbang listened to Kai Songyin's recount and muttered, I've met Director Song a few times because she wants to apply for funding for the Institute of High Energy Physics. She is very familiar with the people from the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Education. I've never heard of her being such an unreasonable person. What do you mean? You think I'm lying? Kai Songyin was immediately enraged. She glared at Tan Dongbang and thought about the breathtaking Song Jining she had seen today. Then she looked at how her husband, who had always listened to her, was actually speaking up for Song Jining. She couldn't help but overthink things. Tan Dongbang, did you see Song Jining's beauty and soften your heart for her? Kai Songyin raised her slanted eyebrows and jabbed at him. She must have undergone plastic surgery, and her entire body must have undergone surgery. Otherwise, how could she have such a face and body? Don't forget she's already in her 50s. She's 2 years older than me. How could you do that? You're making it sound so bad. Am I that kind of person? Tan Dongbang patted Kai Songyin's shoulder lightly. I'm talking about serious business. What day is it today? Why are you so jealous? It's good that you know. We're husband and wife and we've worked hard for so many years to get to where we are today. Just like you, I cherish the days we have now. Kai Songyin hugged Tan Dongbang's waist and leaned her head against his chest. Dongbang, we've been husband and wife for so many years and we've always been harmonious. We're much better than Song Jining and Hua Guanchen. Today they were like enemies in the private room and it was very ugly. Tan Dongbang patted her back. It's good that you know. Don't worry. As long as Song Jining is still the director of the Institute of High Energy Physics, she won't dare to go overboard with little darling. How could she not bow her head when she was under someone else's roof? Yeah. Kai Songyin thought about it and agreed. If Song Jining was a housewife, she really wouldn't know how to deal with her. She couldn't just barge into someone's home and teach them how to live their lives, right? However, Song Jining was the director of the Institute of High Energy Physics. Although it was an academic institution, it was also a subordinate of the Ministry of Education. Nominally, it was also under the jurisdiction of the cabinet, and the head of the cabinet was currently her husband, Tan Dongbang. Wasn't it easy for a boss to make things difficult for their subordinates? Kai Songyin curled her lips into a smile. The couple hugged each other and stood quietly in the middle of the VIP room, trying to calm their excited emotions. Tan Guirin pushed the door open and entered before they quickly separated. Of course, Tan Guirin was happy to see her parents so loving. Covering her eyes, she turned around and said mischievously, "You guys continue." "Continue? Don't mind me. You're such a naughty child." Kai Songyin's pale face was flushed, and she finally felt a little better. She took out her phone and called her assistants in. "I don't need to say more about the importance of tonight, right? I believe you guys know what to do." The two assistants were her confidants, so they quickly said, "Mrs. Tan, don't worry. We know." After leaving the VIP room, Assistant A winked at Assistant B. "What do you think Mrs. Tan means? You still don't know what she means?" Assistant B lifted her chin towards where Song Jining was sitting in the hall. "That person got herself into trouble today, so of course she has to be erased." 5 minutes later, all the lights in the National Center for the Performing Arts were extinguished, and the four corners of the hall slowly lit up with dots of light that looked like candlelight. Of course, it wasn't real candlelight, but candlelight simulated by LCD lights. Then, a sweet female voice sounded from the first-class echo equipment in the hall and began the countdown. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let us welcome our new Prime Minister, Mr. Tan Dongbang, Mrs. Kai Songyin, and the Prime Minister's only daughter, Miss Tan Guirin, with a round of applause. At that moment, the lights in the National Center for the Performing Arts suddenly lit up again. It was dazzling, and the crystal lights on the roof looked like huge blooming lotus flowers. On the raised platform in the center of the National Center for the Performing Arts, 2 rows of LCD lights lit up instantly, illuminating a long and straight corridor. The corridor was covered with reflective tape, and when it was illuminated by the cold light of the LCD on the side of the corridor, it sparkled like lotus flowers blooming on the corridor. The Tan family of 3 walked out from the end of the corridor and leisurely waved to the guests in the National Center for the Performing Arts, their steps blooming like lotus flowers. The Prime Minister's daughter, Tan Guirin, was dressed like a little princess today. She had shoulder-length black hair, and she wore a small diamond tiara on her head. This was a piece of jewelry that had been passed down from the Kai family's ancestors. Because Kai Songyin's husband, Tan Dongbang, was the most outstanding son-in-law in the Kai family, the diamond tiara was given to Tan Guirin as a congratulatory gift. They were close relatives, and the tiara was given to Tan Guirin under her maternal grandmother's name. Therefore, although the diamond tiara was extremely valuable and almost priceless, it wouldn't be considered a bribe. The reason Tan Dongbang was able to get to where he was today had a lot to do with how much he cherished his reputation. He wasn't interested in women, nor was he greedy for money. He just loved fame and power, and he doted on his daughter very much. He was a perfect father who adhered to the 24 filial piety rules. Therefore, the position of Prime Minister was the most suitable for him. Today was also the day his long-cherished wish and dream of many years had finally been realized. He was extremely excited, and his fair and refined face glowed as he proudly walked up to the raised platform. At the same time, all of the Wuxia Empire's television stations, social networks, newspapers, magazines, and other media outlets focused their attention on the Prime Minister's inauguration. It was being broadcasted live on television and online. The Water Army on Weibo was already in position, and they began to click, like, and share the photos of the Prime Minister's family at the inauguration. Kai Songyin had 2 assistants who were experts in this area. They were professionals that she had poached from a small website with a high salary. They were the best at creating public opinion online and setting the pace. Of course, they were also good at digging holes, stirring up trouble, and adding drama. They were also good at pretending to be the opposite, pretending to be loyal, and pretending to be a passerby's haters and passerby's fans. This round of the Prime Minister's inauguration was also planned by Kai Songyin a long time ago. It was a great opportunity for her and her daughter, Tan Guirin, to create a public persona. She wanted to create an image of herself as someone from a scholarly family, who was beautiful and successful in her career. Her daughter, Tan Guirin, was from a prestigious family. She was a musical prodigy from a young age, and when she grew up, she was a princess who studied abroad in Europe and America. Furthermore, their family was indeed very good-looking. Although they weren't as beautiful as Song Jining, they were still relatively outstanding among the group of wealthy women. Therefore, when the photos they had carefully selected began to circulate on Weibo, a bunch of water army passerby began to post topics one after another. Hashtag oh my god. The Prime Minister's wife of the age of beauty. Hashtag the Prime Minister's little princess with a soft body, do you want to go on a date? Hashtag Prime Minister Tan is so handsome. Hashtag let's see what it means to have a family that is better looking than you and smarter than you. Hashtag very quickly these topics spread like wildfire on Weibo. In most of the TV and online broadcasts, Song Jining's footage was quietly erased, and only the Prime Minister's family was highlighted. It couldn't be helped. Song Jining's outfit was too outstanding today, especially since she and the Prime Minister's wife were wearing similar evening attire. When the two of them appeared on TV at the same time, Kai Song-in was immediately outshone. However, for some reason, when the Wuxia Empire's largest national TV station was broadcasting the Prime Minister's swearing-in, they actually displayed a live comparison photo. On one side was the Prime Minister's wife, Kai Song-in, who was wearing a bright red off-shoulder mermaid dress. On the other side was Song Jining, who was wearing a crabapple red mermaid dress. When they only looked at Kai Song-in, everyone felt that she was indeed a beautiful woman. However, when the two were put together, everyone immediately felt that Kai Song-in's evening gown was too tight, and the flesh on her waist was exposed. Her arms were too thick and her fair flesh was exposed. It was truly an eyesore in this kind of situation. There was also too much flesh on her face. When she smiled, her face was full of flesh and looked a bit fierce. Although Song Jining didn't show her face much on TV, just a glimpse like that was enough to make people unable to forget it. Kai Song-in's assistant realized that Song Jining's figure actually appeared on the national TV station. Furthermore, it was a comparison to Kai Song-in's appearance. Their faces darkened, and they immediately called the national TV station to tell them to be careful of their image. Therefore, Song Jining was erased from TV once again. Hua Xiaoheng walked into the house with his phone. To him, his mission for the day was considered complete. He didn't really care about what happened next. Things like Weibo data and online publicity were completely insignificant to him. He didn't care about them at all. However, Gu Nianji, who was scrolling through Weibo, noticed it. Her fingers were a bit itchy, so she nudged Ma Chichi and said, "Chichi, should we start something?" This was the first update. Today was the fourth update, a reminder to everyone, don't forget your recommendation tickets. At 1 p.m., the monthly ticket was 7,400 plus updates. At 7 p.m. the third update. At 11 p.m. the fourth update. The monthly ticket was 7,900 plus updates. The double monthly tickets were continuing. Don't stop, everyone. Chapter 747. In the chess room on the second floor of the three-story villa in the outskirts of the imperial capital, Gu Nianji and Ma Chichi were already sitting cross-legged on the carpet. Yi Zhichu and Yin Shixiang watched TV for a while, but they had no interest in the reception at the National Center for the Performing Arts. Instead, they returned to the table to study new ways to play Texas Hold'em. Gu Nianji and Ma Chichi were both scrolling through Weibo without blinking. Causing trouble? What trouble are you trying to cause? Ma Chichi turned to see Gu Nianji's large eyes practically glowing. She smiled as she looked at Gu Nianji's phone. Yeah, Chichi, don't you think the Prime Minister and his wife are posting articles to buy trending searches again? Gu Nianji's fingers slid across her phone thoughtfully as she quickly scrolled through the news on the front page. Of course. Ma Chichi clicked her tongue. This water army is so good that I can't bear to watch. With that stunning beauty in front of her, how can she have the nerve to boast about her beauty? The truth was, Ma Chichi thought Kai Song-in was still very beautiful before seeing Song Jining in her best clothes. At least among the wives of the high-ranking officials, Kai Song-in's beauty was definitely top 5. However, after seeing Song Jining on TV, Ma Chichi realized she had never seen the world before. I really don't know where the Prime Minister's wife got her face from. Look at this Weibo hype. Does she really think we're stupid and easily brainwashed? Ma Chichi snorted. This kind of trick would have long been exposed on the B University intranet. Gu Nianji scrolled through Weibo and watched TV for a while. She discovered that Song Jining's figure had miraculously become invisible. She couldn't be seen anywhere. Instead, beautiful photos of Kai Song-in and Tang Guiren were everywhere. Gu Nianji stared at the rising number of likes on Weibo. She looked at the high-resolution photos of Kai Song-in and Tang Guiren, especially the exquisite jewelry with extremely clear details. Gu Nianji's heart skipped a beat because she had a camera memory. She quickly searched online. There were almost no secrets in the age of the internet as long as you could find the right direction. Gu Nianji's memory was especially good. She could almost remember everything she had seen online. So when she saw Kai Songyin and Tan Gairen's outfits, she immediately started thinking. Mrs. Tan's evening gown was worth $260,000. This number looked so familiar. Where is it? It seemed to be the campaign expenditure report that Prime Minister Tan had announced. Mrs. Tan's diamond necklace. Is it real? As for Miss Tan's diamond tiara, she seemed to have seen it in an album about the history of European royal jewelry. Gu Nianji immediately searched the internet according to her memory. The results of the search made Gu Nianji, who had wanted to cause trouble, speechless. So did the family owe her? Is he here to repay his debt? Gu Nianji knew that she wasn't a generous person. She could give up on Hua Xiaoheng, but she wouldn't let go of the family that caused her to give up on Hua Xiaoheng so easily. She stretched out her long legs on the carpet and leaned back on the sofa. She smiled and said, "So, let's do something." At that moment, Kai Songyin's water army on Weibo had already started posting articles praising how expensive her evening gown was and how rare her jewelry was. A custom-made evening dress by Monique Louillier. Limited release worldwide this fall. There is only one of this set, and the market price is $260,000. Mrs. Tan paid for it herself and didn't spend a single cent from the country. A dazzling sapphire teardrop pendant diamond necklace. Apparently, it was once owned by the last Queen of India. Now it appears on the Prime Minister's wife's smooth, round neck. It really is a beauty and jewelry complementing each other. The diamond tiara of the Prime Minister's daughter, Miss Tan, has even more history. Apparently, it's a family heirloom passed down from the ancestors of the Kai family. The last owner was Napoleon's queen, Josephine. These little scientific jokes with the intent of showing off quickly spread on Weibo. Gu Nianji only chuckled when she saw them. She took her time to carefully study the photos of Song Jining that had appeared on her phone that day. These were full-body photos of Song Jining dressed to the nines. They were also one of the few photos that had escaped the net, but they were later deleted by the entire internet. However, before they were deleted, Gu Nianji managed to save them first. Her fingers quickly tapped on the phone screen to cut and enlarge the photos. Then she edited them into searchable images. She began to do a wide range of image searches and comparisons online. Using this method, she also found out the history of Song Jining's outfit that day. She couldn't help but gasp as she read through the brief descriptions. This was because the analysis proved that Song Jining's outfit today was neither too much nor too little. It just happened to be one level higher than Kai Songyin's. Also, it just happened to be one level higher than hers, but it wasn't ridiculously high. It was the kind of visible arrogance that said, "I want you to King look good, so come and tear me apart." Someone is already stirring up trouble. Gu Nianji muttered to herself. The corners of her lips curled up slightly. "Then I'll give you a hand." Hua Xiaoheng walked in with both hands in his trouser pockets. His eyes lit up when he heard Gu Nianji's words. He sat down on the sofa behind Gu Nianji and leaned forward slightly to poke his head out from behind Gu Nianji. His gaze was deep as he watched her delicate fingers fly across her phone like the wings of a butterfly. Yijichu saw this and also walked over. He sat on the other side behind Gu Nianji and occupied the two ends of the sofa with Hua Xiaoheng. Gu Nianji was completely immersed in the excitement of stirring up trouble. "Chichi, I'm making a long Weibo post about Director Song. Of course, the main content will be about the First Lady's press release. Then I'll find someone to repost it. Remember to follow the content of the long Weibo post and go to the trending topics about the First Lady." Gu Nianji lowered her head to edit the long Weibo post on her phone. At the same time, she nudged Ma Chichi with her elbow. Ma Chichi couldn't stop smiling. Come on. Let's do something together. Hurry up and post it. I'll go retort." Fighting with people online was Ma Chichi's favorite pastime. For now, there was no other activity. Gu Nianji's long Weibo post was quickly made. She used a secondary account that she didn't use often. After layers of IP camouflage, she finally transferred it back to the Wuxia Empire from a French library. Ma Chichi looked at it and said in surprise, "You're using her outfit to retort? Isn't that a little low?" Gu Nianji tilted her head and smiled. "It is. People like us think it's low. But if you want to retort, do you want to make the other party angry or yourself angry?" "Of course I want to make the other party angry. If I'm angry first, what's the point of retort?" Ma Chichi waved her hand disapprovingly. "Yeah, that's why when we retort, we have to retort in the way that the other party cares about the most. Only then can we retort until her heart, liver, spleen, lungs and kidneys explode. Anyway, even if we think it's low, as long as the other party thinks it's high, then we'll retort. Because at the end of the day, we have to retort until the other party doubts the value of her life and feels like she's better off dead. Gu Nianji raised her right hand and flicked Ma Qiqi's forehead. Come on, let's get to work. Soon, Gu Nianji's long Weibo post was made and became a fashion influencer on Weibo. She used a small program to push her content to the front. The fashion influencer who was paying attention to Weibo immediately saw the long Weibo post from Gu Nianji's secondary account. After skimming through it, he immediately reposted it. Needless to say, such a detailed, graphic and trending long Weibo post would definitely be reposted. Ma Qiqi also used her secondary account to follow the influencer. When she saw the fashion influencer repost Gu Nianji's secondary account's long Weibo post, she couldn't help but give Gu Nianji a thumbs up. Then she looked through the posts one by one and smiled as she quoted the content from Gu Nianji's long Weibo post. She retorted under the Water Army's topics that praised Kai Songyin. My Meng Qiqi, come. Take a look. Director of the Institute of High Energy Physics, Miss Song's custom-made evening gown was also personally made by Monique Louillier. It's a limited edition and there's only one set. The market price is $520,000, and it was all paid for by Miss Song herself. My Meng Qiqi, but was Mrs. Tan's evening gown really paid for by herself? Why did I see this $260,000 in the expenses of your husband? Prime Minister Tan's campaign finance report. May I ask if Mrs. Tan's evening gown was paid for by Prime Minister Tan's campaign funds? My Meng Qiqi, Miss Song's emerald teardrop diamond brooch was given to the Queen of England when India was still a British colony. It was given to the Queen of England by the King of India and his wife. Later it was bought by a mysterious buyer at a charity auction. My Meng Qiqi, as for Mrs. Tan's sapphire teardrop diamond necklace, it was indeed once owned by the last Queen of India. However, this necklace is now in the Sieyès family museum in France. May I ask Mrs. Tan, where did you get the exact same diamond necklace? Did you borrow it? Rent it? And you're even trying to find a high-quality imitation of it. My Meng Qiqi, then look at Miss Song's palm leaf pear diamond tiara. This tiara has a long history and once belonged to Princess Maria Bonaparte of France. It was auctioned off at Sotheby's last century, and it was rumored that it was bought by the Sieyès. Old Madame Sieyès is Miss Song's mother-in-law, so this clue is clear. My Meng Qiqi, as for Prime Minister Tan's daughter Miss Tan's diamond tiara, it has another name. It's called Lover's Knot. It once belonged to Queen Mary of the British Empire in the 19th century, not Napoleon's Empress Josephine. Why did I say it once? Because this diamond tiara was stolen from a royal exhibition, and its whereabouts are still unknown. Wrong, didn't it appear now? This should be the British Embassy in the Wuxia Empire. Your royal family's jewelry that has been missing for many years has appeared again. This is the second update, and the monthly vote is 7,400 plus updates. Today is the fourth update. Remind my dear friends not to forget your recommendation votes. Next is the third update at 7 p.m. Fourth update at 11 p.m. And the monthly vote is 7,900 plus updates. The double monthly votes are continuing. Dear friends, don't stop. Chapter 748. After Ma Qiqi reposted these comments under the trending topics of the Water Army, it was immediately discovered and quickly became a trending topic with countless people's likes. The Water Army, who had been proudly posting articles, finally saw that someone was trying to skin their boss and was instantly furious. Delete it from the entire internet. The head of the Water Army ordered. But what kind of person was Gu Nianji? She had prepared a backup plan. As soon as the Water Army deleted it, it immediately triggered Gu Nianji's cloning program. Instantly, thousands of identical comments were cloned from Ma Qiqi's secondary account and posted one by one. The head of the Water Army was furious. Subtly criticizing people was clearly their specialty, but now they were being held by the neck as a joke. Continue deleting. Silence. Ban accounts. However, it would have been better if they didn't delete it like crazy. If they did, it would be the same as exposing something and immediately arousing the interest of even more people. Everyone spontaneously began to repost the replies from Ma Qiqi's secondary account. Then some people followed the clues and discovered the original Weibo content from Gu Nianji's secondary account. The long Weibo post that had been reposted by a fashion influencer also had a high degree of credibility. Therefore, the entire internet began to repost Gu Nianji's secondary account's long Weibo post. At the same time, related topics began to be pushed by everyone, and the popular replies from Ma Qiqi's secondary account almost became a trending topic. When people saw the reply about the financial expenditure in Prime Minister Tan's campaign report, they actually verified it. The result of the investigation was shocking because that guess was actually true. Therefore, although Mrs. Tan didn't use the country's money for her expensive evening gown, she used campaign funds donated by her supporters. This was a mistake of the same nature as embezzlement. No, not only was it a mistake, but it was also a criminal act. The nature was even worse because it directly offended the voters, and the voters who supported Prime Minister Tan. They were trying to shake his foundation. Therefore, when Prime Minister Tan was making his inauguration speech on television with tears in his eyes, the angry voters had already blown up the television station's hotline and demanded Tan Dongbang to explain what was going on. Kai Songyin's two assistants never dreamed that things would develop to this point. They were as anxious as ants on a hot pan and paced around the studio of the National Center for the Performing Arts. No, things are getting out of hand. I have to go back to the office in the Prime Minister's official residence. I need to personally guide them to change the hot topic. After Assistant A hurriedly gave instructions to Assistant B, they left the National Center for the Performing Arts and returned to their office in the Prime Minister's official residence. They began to direct and carry out crisis public relations. Gu Nianji, who had been observing the state of the entire internet, keenly noticed that the winds had changed. Some expert pickers left the scene and stealthily shifted the topic to Song Jining. They even revealed that she had suffered from mental illness for 16 years due to an experimental accident. Of course, not many people knew about it. At first, no one connected this topic with Song Jining. However, Gu Nianji knew what these people were trying to start. Why did they change the topic to Song Jining? Today, they couldn't wait to erase all traces of Song Jining from the internet, not letting her get any attention at all. Why did he suddenly give her so much attention? Something was wrong, something was wrong. Gu Nianji watched intently as the replies that hinted at Song Jining were pushed to the top. More and more people liked it, and it looked like it was about to become a popular reply. You want to fight with me? Can you compare to the Gestapo? Gu Nianji wasn't scared. Instead, she was full of fighting spirit. She didn't even look back and spread her hands. Qiqi, lend me your phone for a while. Ma Qiqi was holding her phone and fighting with someone. She couldn't hear Gu Nianji at all. Yin Shixiang sat cross-legged next to Ma Qiqi. He was also holding his phone and fighting with her with a smile on his face. Ma Qiqi didn't respond, but Hua Xiaoheng, who was sitting behind Gu Nianji, took out his phone and placed it in Gu Nianji's palm. He Zhichu glanced at him and also took out his phone. Nianji, what do you want to do? I'll help you. Gu Nianji suddenly turned around and saw He Zhichu and Hua Xiaoheng sitting behind her like two great Buddhas. They were both smiling at her, and she instantly felt uncomfortable. She looked down at the phone in her hand and realized it was Hua Xiaoheng's. She quickly wanted to return it to him. However, Hua Xiaoheng said meaningfully, "Didn't you want to check the IP? It's more convenient to use my phone." His phone had higher permissions, so it was naturally more convenient to enter some systems to check the IP data. This was an indisputable fact. But how did Hua Xiaoheng know she was going to check the IP next? She clearly hadn't made a move yet. Gu Nianji pursed her lips and struggled for a second. Then she thought it through and decided to use Hua Xiaoheng's phone. The phone was off, so she needed Hua Xiaoheng to decode it. However, when she handed the phone back, she accidentally placed her thumb on the home button. The phone flashed and actually unlocked. Gu Nianji, He Zhichu. Your fingerprint is also in my phone. You can turn on my phone at any time, so it'll be easier for you to check. Hua Xiaoheng said calmly and didn't feel embarrassed at all. He Zhichu frowned and looked at Gu Nianji. Check what? Didn't you guys break up? Gu Nianji nodded vigorously and said with some confusion, Yes, we broke up. Check what? You broke up so you can't pursue me again? Hua Xiaoheng leaned back on the sofa and said slowly, I'm not your professor, so I'm not restricted by the school's rules and regulations. I can continue to pursue you. The words, I'm not your professor, hurt He Zhichu 10,000 times. His face darkened as he looked at Hua Xiaoheng and said coldly, Nianji is still young. Her main focus should be on her studies. If you really want the best for her, don't harass her. Hua Xiaoheng smiled and stretched his long legs non-committally. He leaned forward to look at Gu Nianji and said, What are you waiting for? Hurry up and check it. Gu Nianji snapped back to reality and found an IP search app on Hua Xiaoheng's phone. She typed in the fake accounts from the Weibo Water Army. Soon she found the IPs used by these accounts. As she expected, there were hundreds of these accounts and they all used 3 IPs. Gu Nianji used her own account to post the results of the investigation under the topic and pointed out, "This is so funny. There are so many fake accounts but there are only 3 IPs. May I ask if you're sharing the same office or the same router?" Her reply was quickly noticed by passers-by, and the fake accounts were also ridiculed and exposed by the passers-by. "There's really such a thing as a fake army? Asking for help. I only need 50 cents for one post. The person above is asking too much. I only need 5 cents. Get lost. The person above is slandering me. I've never seen a fake army before. This post will be posted at 9. Since the Internet Water Army had been exposed, the hidden content posted by the Internet Water Army was naturally suspected by everyone. Gu Nianji used the app to quickly like the replies from Machichi's account and push them to the top. These questions about the Tans were immediately pushed to the forefront. In an instant, even the major TV stations broadcasting the Prime Minister's inauguration couldn't sit still. Hot news. This was all hot news. After struggling for a while, they opened 2 parallel windows on the TV while they were broadcasting the Prime Minister's inauguration. One window showed Kai Songyin's beautiful photos, and the other window showed Machichi's long Weibo post. This was the reply Machichi's account used to attack Kai Songyin's article. As a result, the entire nation and even the entire world watching the Wuxia Empire's Prime Minister's inauguration knew. Prime Minister Tan's campaign funds were misappropriated. Mrs. Tan's high-quality imitation jewelry was patented. Miss Tan was wearing jewelry stolen from the British royal family. The glorious Prime Minister Tan's family, you're in big trouble now. This is the 3rd watch. Today is the 4th watch. Dear friends, don't forget your recommendation votes. The 4th watch at 11 p.m. The monthly vote is 7,900 plus watch. The double monthly vote is continuing. Dear friends, don't stop. Chapter 749. At that moment, the Prime Minister's inauguration ceremony had reached its most important stage. In the National Center for the Performing Arts of the Wuxia Empire, Kai Songyin and Tan Guiren stood on the side of the stage and watched Tan Dongbang's passionate speech. Both of them had tears in their eyes. Tan Dongbang's speech was sincere and full of ambition. He swore to be a good prime minister, a successful prime minister, a prime minister who would leave his name in the history of the Wuxia Empire. Therefore he was very excited and emotional. He had fought for 10 years for this day. For this important day, he had even personally written his inauguration speech. Although it wasn't as flowery and high-spirited as his aides, it came from the bottom of his heart. He didn't even need to memorize it because every word flowed smoothly from the bottom of his heart. This kind of speech could also influence many people, especially those who were listening to his speech live. In the past 10 months, he had walked step by step from being the last among the candidates to becoming the one who had the last laugh. Therefore, although the world outside the National Center for the Performing Arts was almost in full bloom, there was still no sign of a storm inside the National Center for the Performing Arts. However, Kai Songyin's subordinates couldn't handle the situation anymore. They had gone overboard with the topic before, and now they were suffering a beautiful backlash. A few alternate accounts that appeared out of nowhere and used a long Weibo post to completely destroy the sure-win strategy they had prepared for a month. Get me their IP address. We can only find that it's from a library in France. It's obviously fake. But so what if it was fake? You couldn't find anything deeper. And their fake IP could be turned upside down by the other party. Kai Songyin's assistant rubbed her messy hair in a daze. She paced around the office a few times before finally picking up the phone to call Kai Songyin. Kai Songyin also wore a Bluetooth headset just in case. Suddenly, the phone in her headset rang. She was a bit surprised and quietly took the call. Mrs. Tan, something big has happened. Kai Songyin couldn't help but shiver when she heard Assistant A's mournful voice over the phone. That ominous feeling welled up in her heart again. It seemed that ever since Song Jining suddenly appeared like a celestial concubine, she had this ominous feeling from time to time. She glanced at Tan Guiren and gave her a look before silently walking backstage. Although Kai Songyin was also standing on the stage because Tan Dongbang was the host, all the lights around him were turned off when he was giving his speech. Only the light facing him on the stage was on, so not many people noticed Kai Songyin quietly leaving in the dark. She went to the VIP room backstage and spoke to Assistant A. Tell me what happened. Assistant A stuttered at first, but when Kai Songyin yelled at him, he spilled everything out in fear. Mrs. Tan, someone said that your evening gown was bought with the Prime Minister's campaign funds, that your necklace is an imitation, and that your daughter's diamond tiara is stolen. When Kai Songyin heard that, the color drained from her ruddy face. Her face was as pale as a ghost. What did you say? Say that again. Kai Songyin yelled through gritted teeth. She couldn't care less about etiquette at that moment. Of course, she was alone in the VIP room. Who was she supposed to show her manners to? She didn't need to care at all. Kai Songyin listened to Assistant A stuttering over the phone and finally sat down on the sofa. She covered her head with her hands. Her body couldn't stop trembling. It seemed like her worst nightmare had come true. But how did those people know? Her husband's campaign finance report was so thick with so many complicated numbers. How did someone find out about this insignificant $260,000? If she had known earlier, she would have changed the numbers on the draft. And her necklace. How could it be an imitation? It was clearly a birthday gift from a businessman. And her daughter's diamond tiara. She had really been tricked by her paternal family. Could it really be stolen? The tiara had been passed down from the ancestors of the Kai family. The ancestors had said that it was to be passed down as a family heirloom and not to be worn out. However, they had only thought that the ancestors were cautious and didn't want to show off their wealth, so they made such a request. Could there really be a reason? Kai Songyin's face turned purple. Her heart beat violently one moment and then slowly the next. It was like someone was holding her lifeline and could take her life at any moment. She clutched her chest and gasped for air. Finally, she called Assistant B in. Oxygen. I need oxygen. I can't breathe. Assistant B saw that her face was as white as a ghost and was also shocked. She rushed out to bring her a set of oxygen equipment. This kind of equipment was common for large-scale events. The inauguration of the new Prime Minister was, of course, a large-scale event. Also, the people attending were all rich and powerful. None of them could be neglected. Therefore, many sets of oxygen equipment were prepared. Kai Songyin lay flat on the sofa with an oxygen mask covering her face. She looked pale as she breathed in oxygen. Her messy mind slowly cleared up. She frowned and thought about how to get past this. Gu Nianji's strategy of digging up the IP was working. Kai Songyin's Assistant A's attempt at crisis public relations, to divert attention also failed. Gu Nianji personally went into battle and used her alternate account to refute the topics of the Water Army one by one. She even called on people to respect scientists and not gossip about researchers online. After all, they weren't entertainment celebrities and didn't like to use the internet to create hype like some people did. Therefore, they didn't have the obligation to entertain the public. The public should also return them a clean space online. This suggestion received the approval of many real people and was quickly reposted millions of times. It completely suppressed the Water Army's posts about Song Jining. But this wasn't enough. Because these topics still existed in the online space. If someone wanted to stir up trouble in the future and brought up these topics again, then it wouldn't be so easy to suppress them again. Gu Nianji didn't stop there. She used Hua Xiaoheng's phone access to check who the 3 IPs used by the Water Army belonged to. In the end, when the name, number 32 Willow Hutong appeared on the phone, Gu Nianji almost fainted. Number 32 Willow Hutong was the location of the Prime Minister's official residence in the imperial capital. So Kai Songyin's Water Army was so brazen and directly using the Prime Minister's official residence's IP to hype up the Prime Minister's wife. They really kept the goodies to themselves. Gu Nianji didn't know whether to laugh or cry as she shook her head. Then she solemnly posted another Weibo post. Inside she listed the list of Water Army and the 3 IPs. Then she posted the address, number 32 Willow Hutong, next to the IPs. She wrote, "The whole thing is like a magic show." So the people who posted Beauty of the Age were the Prime Minister's wife's own Water Army. Prime Minister Tan, please step forward and delete the slanderous posts posted by the Water Army under your wife's command. We will reserve the right to pursue legal responsibility. As soon as this Weibo post was posted, it immediately went viral on the internet. Everyone had been paying attention to this incident, but they hadn't expected it to dramatically turn back to the Prime Minister's official residence, a location that surprised countless people. Oh my God. I won't be able to look directly at the phrase, Beauty of the Age in the future. Oh my God. Every time I see this Beauty of the Age, I think of white flesh. Can't I just have fun? Prime Minister Tan's family, can you be any lower? So it was Mrs. Tan herself who posted the phrase Beauty of the Age? 2333333 Kai Songyin almost instantly became the laughingstock of the internet. Tan Dongbang finally finished his emotional inauguration speech and announced the end of the ceremony. He returned backstage to the VIP room with Tang Guiran, chatting and laughing. As soon as they entered, they saw a few men wearing the prosecutor's office uniform standing in front of his wife, Kai Song-in. They said with serious expressions, "We just received a report that Prime Minister Tan's campaign funds were illegally misappropriated. The amount was huge. Please come back with us immediately to assist in the investigation." Because Kai Song-in was in charge of Tan Dongbang's campaign finance, this had been recorded by the prosecutor's office and the Senate. What happened? Tan Dongbang was dumbfounded as he watched those people take Kai Song-in away. They didn't even allow him to say a word to her. This was the fourth update, and the monthly votes had been delivered at 7,900 plus updates. Today was the fourth update. Dear friends, don't forget about your recommendation votes and monthly votes. The double monthly votes are continuing. Dear friends, don't stop. Oh, intersection. Oh. Chapter 750. Mommy? Where are you taking my mommy? Tan Guiran's tears fell like rain as she threw herself at Kai Song-in. Two tall men in the prosecutor's uniform blocked her with their arms and said sternly, "The prosecutor's office would like to invite Miss Kai Song-in for tea. Please do not obstruct official business." It's so late. What tea? Can't we drink it tomorrow? Tan Guiran widened her large doe eyes and looked at them in confusion. Her nose and the rims of her eyes were red, but her skin was as pale as snow. She had a pitiful look on her face. Tan Dongbang quickly pulled Tan Guiran over and comforted her quietly. "Don't be scared, little darling. Mommy will be back tomorrow." The people from the prosecutor's office looked at each other and extended a hand. Kai Song-in gritted her teeth and followed them out. In the hall of the National Center for the Performing Arts, the lights slowly came on. The Minister of Internal Affairs, Bai Jianqing, stood up and said to his daughter, Bai Yueran, "Isn't it time to go?" Bai Yueran nodded. "Let's go." Both of their expressions were extremely calm. There wasn't a single trace of disappointment from losing the election. At that moment, Bai Jianqing's phone suddenly vibrated. He took out his phone and swiped it open to look. Surprise flashed across his face. "What is it, father? Is something wrong?" Bai Yueran didn't miss the change in Bai Jianqing's expression and asked with concern. The corners of Bai Jianqing's lips curved imperceptibly. He quickly calmed down and even became a bit serious. He handed the phone to Bai Yueran. "Look, something big has happened." Bai Yueran took the phone from Bai Jianqing suspiciously and looked down at the title. Her eyes widened in shock as she looked at Bai Jianqing. "No way. He just took office. Haha, taking shortcuts for quick success won't end well," Bai Jianqing muttered in a low voice. Aside from his daughter, Bai Yueran, no one else heard. Bai Yueran lowered her head and carefully read the message on Bai Jianqing's phone again before returning it to him. She said sincerely, "Father, you're still the most broad-minded. You stand high and see far. I've always taught you not to fuss over momentary gains and losses. As long as we have a clear conscience, we'll be able to remain calm regardless of the outcome." Bai Jianqing straightened his clothes. "Come, let's go back. Aren't you going to comfort Prime Minister Tan?" Bai Yueran's eyes flashed as she looked backstage. "I'm not going. Old Tan definitely doesn't want to see anyone right now, much less us," Bai Jianqing said emotionally. He also turned back to look. "This matter was handled by your Uncle Gao from the Procuratorate. Go back and call your Uncle Gao and ask about the situation." The head of the Supreme Procuratorate, Gao Kaihui, was an old friend of Bai Jianqing's and was considered a family friend of the Bai family. "I understand, father." Bai Yueran was now completely in awe of Bai Jianqing, and her attitude was even more respectful than before. As soon as they walked out of the National Center for the Performing Arts, the people from the Procuratorate escorted Kai Song-in out from the back door and into the car of the Supreme Procuratorate. As soon as the door closed, the carriage was plunged into endless darkness. Kai Song-in could only watch as the light outside the car window moved further and further away from her. She hugged her body and curled up in a corner of the car. Her heart was filled with fear and unease. Gu Yanran was also a guest at the Prime Minister's inauguration that night. To be honest, when she received the invitation from the Prime Minister's wife, Kai Song-in, she was quite flattered. She had originally been racking her brains to get a ticket, but unfortunately, Gu Nianji wasn't there at that time. She also didn't have a strong relationship with the upper echelons of the Wuxia Empire, so it was difficult to get a ticket. So when Kai Song-in personally came to deliver the invitation, Gu Yanran was extremely excited. She expressed her gratitude to Kai Songyin and donated another $1 million to her husband, Tan Dongbang's campaign fund as a political contribution. Kai Songyin saw that Gu Yanran was so sensible and wanted to rope her in to manipulate Gu Nianji, so she saw Gu Yanran in a new light. At the inauguration that night, Kai Songyin even brought her daughter, Tan Guirin, to introduce them and talk to her for a while. But before this friendship could take root, Kai Songyin got into trouble. After Prime Minister Tan's inauguration, Gu Yanran received a text from Yi Xian. Yanran, look at Weibo. Gu Yanran opened Weibo in confusion. When she saw the headlines and trending searches, she almost couldn't believe her eyes. What was going on? Something had happened to Kai Songyin? Her heart was in a mess. Putting away her phone, she found a staff member and asked, "May I ask where Mrs. Tan is?" She asked me to go find her. The staff member had seen Kai Songyin talking to Gu Yanran before and thought they were close, so she pointed backstage. "She's in the VIP room over there." Gu Yanran grabbed her handbag and walked anxiously to the VIP room. Before she reached the door, she suddenly saw a few men in black uniforms walk out. Kai Songyin was walking in the middle of them. She didn't have her usual smug self. Instead, her face was ashen. Her eyes were dull, and she had a jacket draped over her arm. Gu Yanran could tell at a glance that Kai Songyin's hands were handcuffed, even though she had covered them with a jacket. How could they be so fast? Gu Yanran quickly moved to the side to make way for them. Only after they left did she walk to the VIP room backstage. There were Prime Minister Tan's bodyguards, assistants and secretaries guarding the door. Seeing that someone had arrived, these people said politely, "This is the VIP room. We don't accept guests." Gu Yanran quickly said, "I'm here to see Miss Tan. I just saw Mrs. Tan go out with someone." Seeing that these people weren't moved, Gu Yanran continued, "I'm Gu Yanran. Mrs. Tan has a few words for me to pass to Prime Minister Tan and Miss Tan." "Really? What did Mrs. Tan say?" Prime Minister Tan's secretary asked suspiciously. He wasn't fooled by her. Gu Yanran said confidently, "Please go ask Prime Minister Tan. If he has no objections, I will tell you what Mrs. Tan wants me to pass on." The secretary blushed at Gu Yanran's words. Rubbing his nose, he said, "Wait a moment." He pushed the door open and said to the worried father and daughter inside, "Prime Minister, there's a Miss Gu Yanran outside. She said she just met Mrs. Tan and wanted to pass on a message to you and Miss Tan." Gu Yanran? Tan Dongbang had some impression of the name but wasn't familiar. Tan Guirin remembered and said, "Daddy, Mommy took me to talk to this Miss Gu tonight." She paused and said, "She's Gu Nianji's older sister." Gu Nianji's older sister? Oh, I remember now. Prime Minister Tan nodded and raised his voice to say, "Let her in." The bodyguards, assistants and secretaries waiting outside the door all made way for Gu Yanran. Gu Yanran smiled at them and pushed the door open to walk inside. Tan Dongbang and Tan Guirin were the only two people in the VIP room. Tan Dongbang had just turned 50, but he took good care of himself so he looked like he was in his early 40s. He was tall, handsome and elegant. He stood next to Tan Guirin and was constantly comforting her. He even wiped her tears. His fatherly appearance made Gu Yanran stare at him for a long time before she finally said, "Mr. Prime Minister, Miss Tan?" Tan Dongbang looked up to see an elegant and beautiful woman standing in front of them. Her long, black hair flowed smoothly behind her. She looked inconspicuous at first glance, but with a second glance she was a delicate beauty that people couldn't look away from. Gu Yanran was wearing a cherry blossom pink Chanel evening gown that night. Her collarbones were exposed and her breaths rose and fell gently. Tan Dongbang only glanced at her before looking away. "Is that Miss Gu? What message did my wife want you to pass on to us?" Gu Yanran walked to Tan Guirin's side and looked at Tan Dongbang as she handed her phone to him. "Mrs. Tan didn't say anything to me. I was worried about her safety, so I came to see if there was anything I could help with." Tan Dongbang had no idea what had happened to Kai Songyin. He was in a state of anxiety, so his mood worsened after hearing Gu Yanran's words. However, he didn't say anything out of politeness. He also didn't want to look at Gu Yanran's phone, but as soon as he looked down, he saw the trending searches related to Kai Songyin. Tan Dongbang's heart skipped a beat as he took Gu Yanran's phone to read. He only read a few trending news articles but he couldn't hold it in anymore. How could this be? How could this be? What the hell is going on? Daddy, what's going on? Don't scare me. Tan Guirin started crying again. Gu Yanran comforted Tan Guirin and wiped her tears with a handkerchief as she said to Tan Dongbang, Mr. Prime Minister, the most important thing right now is to get Mrs. Tan back. Do you know anyone in the Procuratorate who can see what we can do? Tan Dongbang shook his head and sighed. Miss Gu, you don't understand. Song Yin is in the Procuratorate right now for tea. We can't go there to look for her right now. If they went to look for her now, they would only give the enemy a handle and would do more harm than good to Kai Song Yin's case. This was something he understood. Gu Yanran didn't know much about the Wuxia imperial bureaucracy, but she knew about foreign officialdom. It could be summed up in one word: throw money. Mr. Prime Minister, I hit it off with your wife the moment I met her. I really can't bear to see a good person covered in dust and a good person suffering. If you need help, please let me know. No matter if it's money or effort, as long as I can do it, I will definitely help you, Gu Yanran said very sincerely, and immediately won Tan Dongbang and Tan Gairen's favor. Sister Gu, thank you so much. You're the best. Tan Gairen held onto Gu Yanran's hand with tears in her eyes and refused to let go. Tan Dongbang pulled himself together and planned on going back to discuss their countermeasures with his advisors. He said to Gu Yanran, "Thank you, Miss Gu, for your timely help. We're still in shock from what happened today. I'll treat Miss Gu to tea another day, but I won't keep you today." "No problem, I understand. You guys take care and don't be too sad." Gu Yanran patted Tan Gairen's shoulder and turned to leave. In Ma Chichi's villa, Gu Nianji and Ma Chichi held their phones and kept refreshing the news to track the latest developments. So even the Procuratorate made a move. How did it happen so quickly? Gu Nianji also didn't expect a long Weibo post would drag down the Prime Minister's wife. Hua Xiaoheng leaned back on the sofa behind her. He clenched his fist and rested it on his chin as he calmly explained to Gu Nianji, "Tan Dongbang became the Prime Minister as a dark horse. So many people don't like him. No one would let go of such a good opportunity." This is the first update. It's the third update today. Don't forget your recommendation votes, dear ones. The monthly vote will be 8,400 plus updates at 1 p.m., and the third update will be at 7 p.m. It's the last 3 days of the month, and the double monthly votes are continuing. Do you still have monthly votes, dear ones? Chapter 751. Yin Shixiang, who was sitting next to Ma Chichi, heard Hua Xiaoheng's words and felt extremely emotional. Hua Xiaoheng, who always gave orders and never explained, was only an exception to Gu Nianji. He was actually explaining to her the complicated interests in the officialdom. Gu Nianji also understood that someone was taking advantage of the situation to mess with the Tan family. Tan Dongbang didn't have long experience in the Ministry of Justice. He had been the Minister of Justice for less than one term before announcing his candidacy for Prime Minister. Compared to Bai Jianqing, who had been the Minister of the Interior for several terms, his luck could be considered exceptional. Everyone knew that Tan Dongbang's election was inextricably linked to his wife, Kai Song-yin, who was especially good at creating publicity online and through the media. Today, Kai Song-yin had fallen because of the media's publicity, so it could be considered Xiao He's success and failure. Gu Nianji instantly thought through Hua Xiaoheng's words. However, He Jichu glanced at Hua Xiaoheng with displeasure and said coldly, "Nianji doesn't need to get involved in your politics. Mr. Hua, please be careful." He then said to Gu Nianji, "Nianji, do you want to be the best lawyer or a politician?" Gu Nianji was speechless. "If you don't say anything, I'll take it that you want to be the best lawyer. As a lawyer, the most important thing is to have a heart of justice. Without a fair stance, it's difficult to make the right judgment. Without the right judgment, you can't be invincible in court." Ijichu spoke with conviction and looked like a strict teacher who trained brilliant students. Gu Nianji instinctively nodded. "Of course I like being a lawyer more. Especially when fighting in court, it didn't matter if the opponent was the defendant or the plaintiff. The feeling of using wisdom and logic to crush the opponent was amazing." Hijichu's cold expression softened slightly. He placed his hand on Gu Nianji's shoulder and encouraged her, "Then work hard and be the most successful lawyer." Hua Xiaoheng slowly put both hands into his trouser pockets, his dark eyes gleaming under the light. "Nianji, no matter what you want to do, be it a lawyer or a politician, as long as it's something you want to do, I will support you." Hijichu's lips couldn't help twitching. "Hua Xiao, you must go against me, right? I'm not that free. Professor He, you think too much. I'm just stating the facts." Hua Xiaoheng bowed slightly. Hijichu laughed coldly and didn't say anything else. Gu Nianji pursed her lips and rubbed her forehead, feeling a headache coming on. She decided to ignore it. Biting her lower lip, she tapped her fingers lightly and sent another message to Tan Dongbang's official Prime Minister's office email, urging them to delete the post. Ma Chichi looked curiously at Hijichu and then at Hua Xiaoheng. She seemed to understand something and was about to speak when a large hand suddenly covered her mouth. Who? Ma Chichi turned her head and glared at him, only to find Yin Shixiang smiling at her. Of course he was also covering her mouth. Ma Chichi's anger immediately disappeared without a trace like snow under the sun. Blushing, she looked at Yin Shixiang and gestured for him to take his hand away. Yin Shixiang chuckled and let go. At this time a cell phone rang in the chess room. Chichi, it's time to eat. It was Ma Chichi's mother calling her. Ma Chichi seemed to snap out of her daze and jumped up from the floor to tug at Gunyanji. Okay, we can finally eat. Nianji, come, you're the birthday girl today. Everything was prepared for you. We're all your guests. Yin Shixiang folded his hands behind his back and couldn't help but think about the feeling of Ma Chichi's lips on his palm. This girl looked very carefree and straightforward, but she had a pair of very soft lips. Yin Shixiang suddenly realized that he was a little distracted. Ma Chichi led the guests from the chess room downstairs to the dining room. Ma Chichi's dining room had a large round table with a large turntable in the middle. It was similar to a restaurant's dining table. The table was filled with all kinds of delicious dishes personally made by Ma Chichi's parents. In the middle was a simple clay pot with lotus root and pork ribs stewed in it all afternoon. It was Nianji's must-order every time she went to a Hubei restaurant. Near the clay pot was a plate of spicy shredded pork. The green shredded pepper, coriander, and dried red chili were stir-fried together. The shredded pork was coated in gravy so it was still tender and white when it came out of the pot. It melted in the mouth. Clockwise from the turntable there was a plate of pearl dumplings, a plate of coleslaw with pig head meat, a bowl of dark red braised pork with icing, white garlic and vermicelli stuffed oysters, pepper and salt mantis shrimp, and a large bowl of mapo tofu that made people sneeze at the smell. It was definitely made with authentic green pepper. The rest of the dishes were spinach with garlic, vegetables with oyster sauce, braised pork meatballs, dried pot with apricot mushrooms, fried squid rings with small onions, green fish with pickled cabbage and chili, and red braised pork. They were all served in large soup bowls that filled the table. Gunyanji glanced at them and realized they were all home-cooked dishes. Most of them were her favorites. A warm feeling suddenly welled up in her heart. Ma Chichi's mother came out after changing and took Gunyanji's hand. Nianji, come, sit. It's your birthday today. After eating there's also steamed crabs. Chichi also prepared a birthday cake for you. Thank you, Auntie. Gunyanji nodded gratefully. Ma Chichi's mother pulled Gunyanji to sit next to her. Ma Chichi was on her other side, and Ma Chichi's father was next to her. Hua Xiaoheng sat next to Ma Chichi's mother and was only one seat away from Gunyanji. He Jichu didn't want to sit too close to Hua Xiaoheng, but if he didn't sit next to Hua Xiaoheng, he would be even further away from Gunyanji. As he hesitated, Hua Xiaoheng had already pulled Yin Shixiang to sit next to him. He Jichu could only sit between Yin Shixiang and Ma Chichi's father. This position happened to be right across from Gunyanji. He Jichu smiled and nodded to Gunyanji before sitting down. Here, eat more. Why are you so skinny? You must not eat properly normally, right? Are you picky about food? Ma Chichi's mother whispered to Gunyanji, you can't just eat meat. You have to eat vegetables too. She was a very gentle middle-aged woman, and Ma Chichi's personality was completely different from her mother's. She probably took after her father. Gunyanji had never been taken care of so carefully by a woman of her age. She felt more and more like someone was pulling a string in her heart. Every time Ma Chichi's mother spoke to her gently, it tugged at her heartstrings. Okay, thank you, Auntie. I'll eat. Gunyanji ate everything Ma Chichi's mother put in her bowl. Even her least favorite dishes, onions and squid, she ate them without hesitation. Although she felt a little nauseous, she didn't refuse because she was too greedy for the gentle feeling Ma Chichi's mother gave her. In terms of concern, Hua Xiaoheng, Yin Shixiang, Zhao Liangze, and He Jichu were definitely more concerned about her than Auntie Ma, who she had just met. However, Gunyanji felt that Auntie Ma's concern was different from Hua Xiaoheng's and the others. It was like there was a place in her heart that even she didn't know was missing, but Auntie Ma's concern quietly raised a flag there to let her know that there was something lacking. Later, she realized that this kind of concern was the kind that belonged to a mother. This kind of lack was the lack of maternal love. Watching Gunyanji gulp down the onions and squid rings, not only did He Jichu and Hua Xiaoheng feel restless, but even Yin Shixiang couldn't take it anymore. He put down his chopstick several times and wanted to say something, but when he saw Gunyanji's face contorted and she still ate without refusing, he couldn't say anything. He only felt a little sorry for her. This child had always been like this. She wouldn't let go of the moment someone gave her a good thing, Hua Xiaoheng remembered the books on child and adolescent psychology that he had borrowed from Chenlai the past few days. He knew very well that Gu Nianji's symptoms were very serious maternal love deficiency. It wasn't that she didn't remember maternal love because she lost her memory. It was that in the depths of her memory, which was her subconscious, there was no place for maternal love at all. In other words, this was a child who had never tasted maternal love since she was young, therefore she had a strong sense of insecurity. This insecurity was probably rooted in the depths of her memory before she lost her memory. Hua Xiaoheng looked at Gu Nianji quietly. She didn't feel anything and only quietly looked at Ma Qiqi's mother as she ate. Her expression was one of curiosity, obedience, and a slight desire to please. Hua Xiaoheng suddenly felt uncomfortable and stood up. "You guys eat slowly. I'll go out and make a call." He quickly walked out and soon after He Jichu's phone also rang. He took it out and looked at it before also standing up. "I'll go take a call." The two of them walked one after the other to the big tree in the backyard. Hua Xiaoheng held a cigarette in his hand, and it glowed scarlet in the darkness. He Jichu walked over and said dryly, "Mr. Hua, is there something you need from me?" Hua Xiaoheng took a drag of his cigarette and flicked the ash before finally saying, "He Jichu, tell me directly. What do you want for Nianji to find her parents?" He Jichu was speechless. He looked away, his shimmering, sultry eyes flashing in the night sky. "I don't understand what you're talking about. You schemed and started looking for Nianji 7 years ago. It wasn't until a year ago that you suddenly came to our country from America after hearing news of Nianji." Hua Xiaoheng laid his cards on the table. "He Jichu, I believe that you wouldn't harm Nianji. I believe that you came here to find her. But after you found her, why didn't you say anything about bringing her home? What about her parents? Are they still alive? What are you talking about?" He Jichu frowned with a confused expression. "You saw it just now. You should know what Nianji is yearning for. She's been with us for 7 years, and although she lost her memory, she hasn't mentioned her parents even once. She's a 12-year-old, so even if she lost her memory she would still know the meaning of her parents." Hua Xiaoheng continued to persuade He Jichu, hoping he could help Nianji. After a long time, He Jichu finally said with a cold expression, "Gu Xiangwen is her father. What's the problem?" "What's the problem?" Hua Xiaoheng threw away the cigarette in his hand and growled, "Don't tell me that you don't know that Gu Xiangwen isn't her biological father." This was the second update, and the monthly votes were 8,400 plus updates. Today was the third update. A reminder to everyone, don't forget your recommendation votes. It was the third update at 7 p.m. There were only 3 days left until the end of the month, and the double monthly votes were continuing. Do you still have monthly votes? Oh, intersection. Oh. Chapter 752. He Jichu snickered and put his hands in his trouser pockets. He walked a few steps under the tree and looked up at the night sky. "So that's how it is. You guys only found out now? You gave us this clue and brought Gu Xiangwen back under your suggestion. He Jichu, what are you trying to do? Is it fun to play tricks on people?" "I have nothing better to do than play tricks on people. What am I trying to do?" "Mr. Hua, I'm helping you." He Jichu continued to sneer. "Didn't you want Nianji to have an identity that can pass the background check? I let go so that Nianji could be with the person she likes. What about you? What did you do? You've broken her heart. If I had known this would be the result of letting her stay by your side, I would have taken her back immediately and not given you any chance to hurt her." He Jichu also hardened his stance. "You won't have the chance again. I advise you to stay away from Nianji or I won't be polite." Hua Xiaoheng froze. He stood motionless under the tree's shade. The leaves were sparse and the moonlight shone through the treetops. The swaying light reflected on Hua Xiaoheng's body. His face was hidden in the darkness and his expression was silent. His mind was racing but he didn't know where to start. After a while, Hua Xiaoheng said, "So you admit that you deliberately gave Nianji a fake identity?" "Fake identity?" He Jichu frowned. "That's the real identity. Nianji is Gu Xiangwen's daughter. I'll say that no matter where I am. But that Gu Xiangwen's DNA doesn't match with Nianji. How do you explain that?" Hua Xiaoheng crossed his arms. His eyes were as sharp as a hawk's as he stared at He Jichu in the dark. He didn't miss any expression or movement. He Jichu shook his head nonchalantly and smiled faintly. "Major General Hua, I know the DNA doesn't match. That's why I asked you to find Nianji's dental records and blood samples when she was young." Hua Xiaoheng was speechless. "Since you can use indirect methods to prove Nianji's identity, Why don't you use indirect methods to prove Gu Xiangwen's identity? He Zhichu raised his long brows, his shimmering almond-shaped eyes filled with glee. Wu Xiaoheng gradually understood. He Zhichu's words proved 2 points of view. Firstly, there was something wrong with Gu Xiangwen. Secondly, to verify Gu Xiangwen's identity, they had to start with Gu Xiangwen's indirect records, such as his dental records and blood samples before the accident. But where was she going to find dental records and blood samples from before the accident? They had once spent half a year looking for Gu Xiangwen, but to no avail. After Xie Dezhao's reminder, he went to investigate Kevin Ku and found out a little about his academic achievements. In the end, they discovered that this person had hidden himself very well. Other than academic records, they could not find any other traces. Wu Xiaoheng looked at He Zhichu and said bluntly, "Why indirectly? Why can't we just do it?" "Because I can't do it directly, I can only do it indirectly." He Zhichu didn't say anything. Wu Xiaoheng didn't want to play tongue twisters with him, so he settled for the next best thing. "Then do you know where to find indirect evidence?" He Zhichu shrugged. "I'm sorry, I don't know. I really don't know." His action was very similar to Gu Nianji's. Wu Xiaoheng found it a bit irritating, so he looked away and asked, "Then how do you know there's something wrong with Gu Xiangwen?" "It's very simple. Because of Gu Yanran." He Zhichu looked at Wu Xiaoheng like he was an idiot. "There's such a big living person there and you can actually ignore it? Major General Hua, you don't have to expose yourself here, do you? Professor He, don't judge others by your own standards." Wu Xiaoheng composed himself and resumed his calm demeanor. "Then you mean there's something wrong with Gu Yanran too?" "I didn't say that. Gu Yanran is also a real daughter of the Gu family." He Zhichu spread his hands. "But let me remind you, don't expect women to think rationally. If you push them too hard, they'll go crazy and be completely clueless." Wu Xiaoheng said. "Professor He is very experienced. I've learned a lot." He Zhichu couldn't be bothered to argue with him anymore. He snorted and returned to the house. Wu Xiaoheng stood under the tree for a while before taking out his phone to text Zhao Liangzi. "Help me make an appointment with Xie Dezhao. I have something to talk to him about." Xie Dezhao's current wife was Speaker Long's cousin. Speaker Long had tried to matchmake Wu Xiaoheng and Xie Qingying, but of course it didn't work out. That was already last year. Wu Xiaoheng had learned about Gu Xiangwen's international reputation and status from Xie Dezhao. Xie Dezhao's deceased wife was called Gu Tian. This person was probably Gu Xiangwen's younger sister. According to Xie Dezhao, Gu Tian was Gu Xiangwen's biological sister. Wu Xiaoheng remembered that Gu Tian's daughter, Xie Qingying's DNA, was related to Gu Nianji. This proved that Gu Tian and Gu Nianji were related. If only he had Gu Tian's DNA. Wu Xiaoheng still remembered what Xie Dezhao had said about Gu Tian and Gu Xiangwen last year. So what if he's famous? He's someone who goes back on his word and doesn't even care about his own sister's life. I don't want to talk to him no matter how capable he is. The truth is, I haven't contacted him since my wife passed away. 26 years ago at my wife's funeral, I beat him up and chased him away. I told him never to come back to my house again. It's useless even if he came. I never let him in. He still came for the first few years after my wife passed away, but I chased him away every time. He stopped coming and only sent birthday gifts to Qingying every year. However, since 6 years ago he hasn't sent Qingying any birthday presents. The 6 years ago, that Xie Dezhao mentioned happened to be the year Gu Xiangwen's plane crashed. What about Gu Xiangwen's wife? Wu Xiaoheng suddenly realized that neither He Zhichu nor Xie Dezhao had ever mentioned Gu Xiangwen's wife. Not even once. But Gu Yanran had mentioned it, and they had also found the name Grace Ku on the passenger list of the MH210 plane that crashed. That should be Gu Xiangwen's wife's English name. Wu Xiaoheng fell into deep thought. He thought for a while and decided to clarify Gu Xiangwen's identity first before looking for Gu Xiangwen's wife, who was Gu Nianji's mother. It was also time for Xie Dezhao to recognize this Gu Xiangwen. After sending the text, Wu Xiaoheng returned to the dining room and glanced around to see that Gu Nianji wasn't at her seat. Before he could ask, Yin Shixiang understood the look in his eyes and smiled. Nianji went to the bathroom. She must have gone to throw up. Wu Xiaoheng didn't say anything and quietly went to heat a glass of water to put on Gu Nianji's table. He Zhichu had already left the table and walked to the window to look at his phone. Ma Qiqi and Yin Shixiang were chatting with Ma Qiqi's parents, and the four of them were very friendly. After a while, Gu Nianji came out of the bathroom. Her face was a bit pale and she must have vomited badly. Wu Xiaoheng watched her walk over and sit on the chair. He picked up the warm water that Wu Xiaoheng had placed on her table and drank it in one gulp. Gu Nianji had almost puked her heart out in the bathroom. The smell of onions and squid lingered in her chest, and she wanted nothing more than to immerse herself inside and out in water to wash away the smell. "You're all done? Come, let's eat some crabs." Ma Chi-Chi's father saw that everyone was almost done eating and went to the kitchen to bring over the steamed crabs. The large crabs weighed at least a catty each. They were tied up with straw ropes and steamed in the steamer until they were bright red. Cutting the ropes and removing the crab shells, they instantly saw the glistening yellow seeds. "This is a full yellow crab. Nianji, you have good taste." Ma Chi-Chi winked at her and reached out to put one on the plate in front of her. Yijichu walked back and sat down. He placed a crab with a rounded navel in front of him and began smashing it with the crab mallet. Wu Xiaoheng didn't need the crab mallet at all. His hands were more useful than any tool and could completely crush the crab shells with his bare hands. Therefore, the crabs were obedient in his hands. Soon, the plate in front of him was filled with a small mountain of freshly cut crab meat. Then he poured a little vinegar and shredded ginger. It was so fresh that she could forget all the troubles in the world. Gu Nianji focused on finishing one crab and was about to eat another when she suddenly realized that the plate in front of her had been taken away and replaced with 2 plates of freshly cut crab meat. 1 plate on the left and 1 plate on the right. Following the hand holding the plate, she first saw Wu Xiaoheng's handsome and solemn profile, then turned to see Yijichu's elegant and warm smile. It was the 3rd watch. It was the 3rd watch today. Remind everyone not to forget your recommendation votes. It was the last 3 days of the month, and the double monthly votes were continuing. Do you still have monthly votes? Chapter 753. Don't eat any more after this plate. Crabs are cold and eating too much isn't good for your body. Wu Xiaoheng pushed his plate of crab meat to Gu Nianji without batting an eyelid and pushed Yijichu's plate to the side. Yijichu was speechless. The corners of Gu Nianji's mouth twitched as she glanced into the dining room. She got up to get a white porcelain bowl from the long table by the wall. She swept the 2 plates of crab meat into white porcelain bowls, then asked Ma Chi-Chi for a bag of bread slices and salad dressing. She made a few crab meat sandwiches and placed them neatly on small plates. Everyone in the cafeteria had a plate of them. Gu Nianji smiled. "I'm offering to Buddha with borrowed flowers. Please don't mind." Wu Xiao and Professor He took the crab meat apart, and the bread and salad dressing are from Chi-Chi's family. I only used my hands. Try it and see how it tastes. Ma Chi-Chi laughed so hard she almost had internal injuries. She smiled and took the crab sandwich from Gu Nianji's hands. She took a bite and found it surprisingly delicious. The freshness of the crab meat and the consistency of the salad dressing blended together. Then it was wrapped in whole wheat bread. Her mouth was filled with the fragrance of food and she couldn't stop eating. After finishing the crab sandwich, Massachusetts Chi-Chi giggled like a monkey on her mother's body and said cheekily, "Mom, didn't you say you wanted to lose weight? I'll make this crab sandwich for you." As she spoke, she snatched the crab sandwich from her mother's hands without giving her a chance to refute. "You child, why do I remember that you were the one who kept saying you wanted to lose weight?" Ma Chi-Chi's mother patted her with a smile. "Nianji's crab sandwiches are delicious. You should learn from her." Gu Nianji saw this and quickly placed the crab sandwich on her plate in front of Ma Chi-Chi's mother and said obediently, "Auntie, try this. It's clean. I haven't touched it." Ma Chi-Chi's mother turned around to see the longing in Gu Nianji's large, bright eyes. She didn't know why, but her heart actually ached. She smiled as she took the crab sandwich from Gu Nianji's small plate and took a big bite. Yes, Nianji's crab sandwich is really delicious. No wonder Chi-Chi cried and shouted for my share. Yeah, it's so delicious. I'll snatch it even if I cry and scream. Ma Chi-Chi made a face at Gu Nianji and quickly finished the second crab sandwich in her hand. He licked his fingers and stared at the crab sandwich in his mother's hand, his eyes shining. When Ma Chi-Chi's mother saw this, she deliberately teased her. She held the crab sandwich in her hand and ate it with relish, constantly exclaiming, "Sai, why is it so delicious? It would be great if Nianji was my daughter. Unfortunately, she's someone else's daughter. My daughter would never think of making sandwiches for me. She would only snatch them from me." It's just that comparing people to others is infuriating. Ma Chi-Chi was embarrassed. She stomped her feet and called out unwillingly, "Mom." Ma Chi-Chi's father smiled as he held Ma Chi-Chi's hand and said, "Your mother likes other people's daughters and I like my own. We're even, ha. Daddy is the best. I like Daddy the most." Ma Chi-Chi was so happy that she hugged her father's neck and jumped and shouted. She was already very tall, but Ma Chi-Chi's father was even taller. She jumped and jumped in front of her father like a child. "Oh Ma, you've gone too far. Don't take the opportunity to drive a wedge between us." Ma Chichi's mother chided her husband with a giggle. Ma Chichi quickly hugged her mother again. "Mom, I like you too. I like them all." The family of three was happy and harmonious, and the atmosphere was wonderful. Gunyenji had never seen a father, mother and child's family being so harmonious. She was momentarily entranced by the sight of it. She thought, so this is what it feels like to have parents? She didn't have to worry that they wouldn't like her if she did something wrong. She didn't have to worry that they would look down on her if she didn't do her best. Their love came from the bottom of their hearts and didn't ask for anything in return. It was all for their children. She finally understood that there was a truly selfless love in this world. It was the love parents had for their children. Everyone had a father and a mother. What about his own parents? If they were by her side, would they be like Ma Chichi's parents and spoil her without asking for permission? As she thought about it, her big bright eyes seemed to be covered by a layer of mist and suddenly became hazy. Ijichu saw it and felt a pang of sorrow. He walked to Gunyenji's side and picked up his crab sandwich to feed her. He smiled and said, "You want to eat crab sandwiches too? I ate half of them. If you don't mind, I'll give it all to you." His voice was cool and indifferent, but the words he just said had a rare gentle and compassionate tone. Gunyenji looked up at him and couldn't help opening her mouth to take a bite. Xiaoheng saw this and also brought his own crab sandwich over. He said, "I haven't eaten mine yet. Do you want some?" Gunyenji saw him and seemed to come back to her senses. She blinked and said, "No, I don't want to eat. I'm full." "Okay, go back if you're full. It's already late." Xiaoheng didn't mind and stuffed the crab sandwich on the small plate into his mouth. He finished it in a few bites. Yin Shixiang couldn't help coughing and said to Ma Chichi, "Huh? Didn't you say there was cake? Where is it? Don't tell me you only remembered to eat crab sandwiches and forgot about our Nyenji's birthday cake?" No. Ma Chichi jumped up. "I'll go get the cake. Nyenji, please don't leave." With that, he dashed towards the kitchen. Gunyenji quickly said, "Chichi, don't rush. Run slowly." Ma Chichi's parents also sincerely asked them to stay. "Eat the cake before you go." Chichi spent a lot of effort preparing it. Ma Chichi's mother took out another red envelope and put it in Gunyenji's hand. "Nyenji, happy birthday. Have this day every year and every year." Gunyenji accepted the red envelope and clutched it tightly in her hand. She kept saying, "Thank you, Auntie. Thank you, Auntie. Don't mention it. Come over with Chichi more often in the future. She's the only child in our family. She always says the house is too lonely. It'll be much livelier with you around." Ma Chichi's mother saw that Gunyenji was obedient and cute. She also heard that she was a straight-A student, so her impression of Gunyenji improved. They could only rest assured being friends with a child like this. Ma Chichi quickly brought over the birthday cake she had prepared for Gunyenji. It was actually an ice cream cake. It was covered with a layer of snow-white cream and frosting. The words, "Happy Birthday," were written in simple cursive. Gunyenji laughed and winked at Ma Chichi. "Ah, ice cream cake. It's delicious." Actually, Ma Chichi was the one who liked ice cream cake, but her mother said that it was too high in calories and didn't allow her to eat it. Therefore, although Ma Chichi craved it, she never secretly ate it outside because she was a very obedient child. She promised her mother that she wouldn't eat ice cream cake. Even if it was outside where her mother couldn't see, she wouldn't eat it. However, it was still okay to use a classmate's birthday as an excuse to get some benefits for herself and eat it openly in front of her mother. Gunyenji understood what she was thinking. Smiling, she picked up the long knife and cut the ice cream cake into pieces. She put a small plate over to everyone. Ma Chichi ate the most and fought with Yin Shixiang over the food. The whole house was filled with the sound of her and Yin Shixiang's laughter. By the time they finished eating the ice cream cake, it was already 11 p.m. Xiaoheng said to Ma Chichi's parents, "Thank you for your hospitality today. Thank you for making Nyenji's birthday dinner. It was very sumptuous." "Mr. Hua, you're too kind. It was just a simple home-cooked meal." "Mr. Hua's crab was the real highlight," Ma Chichi's father said humorously. He nodded at Gunyenji. "Nyenji, come with Chichi often in the future when you have time. Treat her like your own home." Gunyenji's eyes reddened at Ma Chichi's father's words. She forced herself not to reveal any strange expression and answered crisply, "Yes, uncle." On the way back, Ma Chichi followed Gunyenji out the front door. Yin Shixiang was forced to go forward by Xiaoheng. He smiled at Ma Chichi. "Chichi, do you want to take my car? I'll take you back to school." Ma Chichi's eyes lit up. She nodded instinctively. Sure. She then remembered that she and Gu Nianji had both taken Hijichu's car. It was on the way, but she had to trouble Yin Shixiang again. That didn't seem like a good idea. Ma Qiqi turned to look at Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji understood what she was thinking and pushed her with a smile. Okay, you go take Brother Xiong's car. I'll take Professor He's car. She purposely said, it'll be quieter without you. You chatter too much. It's too noisy. What? I'm noisy. Ma Qiqi pointed at her own nose exaggeratedly. I heard that someone has been a chatterbox since she was young. Heard? Who did you hear that from? Gu Nianji pushed Ma Qiqi with a smile. Okay, I know you guys can talk about anything. Go now. Look, Brother Xiong's face is red. Yin Shixiang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He took Ma Qiqi's hand. Let's go. My car is over there. He took Ma Qiqi to the car and sat in the passenger seat. He got into the driver's seat and quickly started the car. He drove away. Ma Qiqi held the hand Yin Shixiang had just held and thought, his hand is big and warm. Ma Qiqi didn't snap out of her daze until the car had driven some distance away. She looked back and asked curiously, Huh? Where's Huoxiao? Didn't you say Huoxiao went out for business and gave you a ride? This was Huoxiao's car. Why did they drive it away? Yin Shixiang was speechless. Then he slapped his forehead exaggeratedly. Oh no. I forgot Huoxiao at your house. What should I do? Ma Qiqi rolled her eyes at him and muttered, I don't know what you're doing. How could you forget something like that? Yin Shixiang quickly took out his phone to call Gu Nianji. He pretended to say, Nianji? Did you leave? Qiqi and I are leaving first. Huoxiao, please take him back. Is that okay? This is the first update. It's the third update today, a reminder to everyone, don't forget your recommendation tickets. The monthly tickets are 8,900 plus updates at 1 p.m., and the third update at 7 p.m. It's the last 2 days of the month. The double monthly tickets are continuing. Do you still have monthly tickets? P.S. Thank you Enigmaangxi for tipping 10,000 Chidian coins yesterday. Alright, do you prefer to update several updates at once or update 3 times a day? Chapter 754. By the time Gu Nianji received Yin Shixiang's call, Huoxiaoheng was already in Hijichu's car. She regretted sitting in Hijichu's passenger seat just now. Then she wouldn't have to sit with Huoxiaoheng. She didn't feel anything else but awkwardness. She turned her head to look out the window and chuckled at Yin Shixiang. She said faintly, Brother Xiong, how dare you forget about your chief? Do you think I'm stupid? Yin Shixiang chuckled. Nianji, don't expose the truth. Also, the chief understands that it's not easy for an old leftover man like me. You should understand too, right? You, an old leftover man? Gu Nianji burst out laughing. Brother Xiong, you're really good at making up stories. She gradually calmed down. She hung up and turned to look at Huoxiaoheng sitting on the other side. Huoxiao, Brother Xiong asked us to take you back. Where are you going? Huoxiaoheng propped his head on his hand and leaned against the window. He replied calmly, to your school. To my school? Gu Nianji was speechless. Why are you going to my school so late? Huoxiaoheng glanced at her with a hint of a smile in his eyes. Big Xiong took Qiqi back to school. I'm going to wait for him there. Gu Nianji replied with an "oh," and called Yin Shixiang again. Brother Xiong, Huoxiao asked you to wait for him at my school. Yin Shixiang acknowledged and secretly sent Huoxiaoheng a text to ask if that was the case. Huoxiaoheng casually replied yes, and put his phone away. Hijichu sat in the front driving and felt indescribably frustrated. He really wanted to stop on the side of the road and ask Gu Nianji to sit in front. Or maybe he should ask Gu Nianji to sit in front right now. It seemed to be against traffic rules and wasn't very safe. He coughed and turned on the car stereo. Debussy's Moonlight instantly flowed out like water. The melodious melody had a soothing effect. Gu Nianji leaned her head against the window and stared at the scenery outside in a daze. Her eyes were wide open. From his angle, Huoxiaoheng could even see the rows of street lights reflected in her pupils. It was like a sky full of stars were in her eyes. It was obvious that Gu Nianji was still immersed in the happy life of Ma Qiqi's family. Huoxiaoheng thought about it expressionlessly and said, Qiqi's family is really not bad. I can tell that her parents are decent people and love their children very much. Gu Nianji, however, there are also some parents who don't have deep feelings for their children. To them, their children are just tools or missions. Once they complete them, everything will be fine. What is he talking about? Gu Nianji couldn't help but glance at Huoxiaoheng. Hua Xiaoheng wasn't looking at her. Instead, he was looking in the direction of his car window. Gu Nianji could only see the outline of his handsome profile and the perfect curve of his jaw. There are also parents who don't care about their children at all, but when their children grow up, they make all sorts of demands on them. They want their children to do anything they can to repay their kindness. Hua Xiaoheng's voice was very low, and it was accompanied by the sound of the piano that sounded like a mountain spring. It had a different kind of charm to it. Gu Nianji frowned and was about to retort when He Zhichu, who was driving, also spoke. Hua Xiao has a point. Nianji, Qiqi's parents are already very good parents. Most parents aren't that good. I've been a lawyer for so many years and I've seen many irresponsible and unimaginable parents. There was once a very rich man in the United States who made a will before he died. He left all of his inheritance to the children of his later wife, including the children of that wife and her ex-husband. However, he didn't share a single cent with his biological children from his ex-wife. There was also a mother who pimped out her biological daughter so that she could earn money to pay off her gambling debts. Gu Nianji was speechless. So these two people saw that she was envious of Qiqi's parents today, so they came to educate her about how many unreliable parents there were in this world. Gu Nianji silently knelt before these two people, who wanted to listen to such negative things. It wasn't like she didn't know, she sighed and said weakly, I understand. I was just feeling emotional for a moment. Actually, even without parents I've grown up and… She glanced at Hua Xiaoheng. If she didn't use the standards of lovers to measure him, he was indeed flawless to her. He Zhichu had no choice but to agree with Hua Xiaoheng. He felt uncomfortable all over. However, he had to agree because he didn't want Gu Nianji to be stubborn. Gu Nianji suddenly thought of Hua Xiaoheng and He Zhichu's situation. Hua Xiaoheng didn't need to be mentioned. Although he had biological parents, his father was unreliable, and his mother devoted herself to scientific research. He was raised by his grandmother. As for paternal and maternal love, he probably didn't enjoy much of it. Of course, his parents were by his side, and Auntie Song undoubtedly loved Hua Xiao a lot. However, Auntie Song and Auntie Ma were two completely different types of people, so they couldn't be compared. However, Gu Nianji liked them both. She wanted to be someone who could be independent like Auntie Song, but she also wanted to have a mother like Auntie Ma. Was she being too greedy? Gu Nianji's fingers gently tapped the window to the rhythm of the piano. She looked at He Zhichu, who was driving diagonally in front of her. She vaguely remembered He Zhichu mentioning once that his mother passed away when he was 10 years old. He was raised by his father himself. His father didn't remarry for more than 10 years because of him. It wasn't until He Zhichu was almost 30 that his father married the confidant who had always been by his side. Gu Nianji gradually calmed down when she thought of this. Okay, they weren't from families like Ma Qiqi's, so they could understand each other, right? However, Gu Nianji still felt that they were different from her. Regardless of whether their parents truly loved them or not, they all knew who their parents were and where their roots were. Gu Nianji was different. She didn't remember her parents, her hometown, or her childhood, so her sense of insecurity and desire for maternal love were deeper than theirs. She had to graduate quickly. After graduation, she could be independent as soon as possible and begin her journey to find her mother. She couldn't rely on others. Gu Nianji thought about it vaguely. Slowly, drowsiness overtook her and she leaned against the window to sleep. It had been an exhausting day. Even someone as energetic as her felt mentally and physically exhausted. Hua Xiaoheng didn't hear her speak for a while. He sensed that her breathing was calm and light, like she was asleep. He turned to see that she was indeed asleep. However, her head was leaning against the window, and her arms were tightly wrapped around his chest as she curled up in the corner. Hua Xiaoheng's eyes flashed. He sat over and pulled Gu Nianji over to let her lean against his shoulder. Gu Nianji was sleeping soundly when she felt a familiar scent in her dreams. She couldn't help leaning over to find a comfortable position. She heard the familiar sound of a heartbeat. It was the best lullaby and she slept even more soundly. Hua Xiaoheng looked down to see Gu Nianji, who had fallen asleep clutching his shirt from his shoulder to his chest. His lips curled into a slight smile. Hua Xiaoheng hugged her like that and let her rest on his chest. They slept all the way to the dormitory. He Zhichu saw it from the rearview mirror. The veins on the back of his hand bulged as he gripped the steering wheel, but he gritted his teeth and didn't make a sound. Yin Shixiang had arrived a long time ago. After Ma Qiqi went up, he waited there alone. It was already past midnight and there weren't many people on campus. Yin Shixiang didn't have to wait long before he saw He Zhichu's car drive over and park below the dormitory. The door opened and Hua Xiaoheng got out of the car. He then turned around and reached into the car to carry someone out. Yijichu also got out of the car and called out to Hua Xiaoheng. Hua Xiao, this isn't good, right? Hua Xiaoheng stopped in his tracks and glanced at him. What's not good about it? Nianji is asleep. It's only a few steps. Just wake her up. Yijichu walked over with a cold expression and called out, Nianji, wake up. His voice seemed to explode in her ear. Gu Nianji opened her eyes in a daze and quickly felt something was wrong. She struggled to stand up. She vaguely remembered that she seemed to have leaned against Hua Xiaoheng to sleep in the car. She suddenly felt very ashamed and didn't even look up. Professor He, thank you for driving me back. Good night. After saying that, he turned around and ran into the dormitory building. Yijichu didn't say anything. He texted Gu Nianji to rest well and drove away. Yin Shixiang finally walked over and said with a smile, Hua Xiao, can we go back now? Hua Xiaoheng didn't even look at him and extended his hand. Keys. Yin Shixiang placed the car keys in his hand and followed him into the car. They left the B University campus and returned to the Special Operations Forces headquarters base. The next day was Monday. Both Gu Nianji and Ma Qiqi had morning classes. The two of them woke up at 7 o'clock and hurriedly finished their breakfast. Then they carried their bags and rushed to their respective classrooms. On Monday, on the B University campus, students faced the rising sun and raced against the clock. They were full of fighting spirit. However, the world outside the campus wasn't as calm and peaceful. The news of the new First Lady being taken away by the Procuratorate on Prime Minister Tan's first day in office spread like a storm from Weibo to reality. Everyone, both online and offline, was paying attention to this major news. Tan Dongbang and his staff discussed it all night and finally decided to have a lawyer go to the Procuratorate to bring Kai Songyin back early the next morning. The legal reasoning they used was that the Procuratorate didn't have a court subpoena and couldn't set up a private courtroom to detain someone. If it was to assist in the investigation, a lawyer had to be present and couldn't be forced. The time couldn't exceed 12 hours. Tan Guirin cried all night and didn't fall asleep until the sun rose. Tan Dongbang couldn't care about her at this time. He only hoped that Tan Guirin would be obedient while he was under pressure. He had just sat down in his office when he received an internal call saying that Miss Gu Yanran was requesting to see Prime Minister Tan. She also brought the latest news about Mrs. Tan. Gu Yanran didn't come alone. She brought Yi Xian. Yi Xian had watched Kai Songyin's incident from beginning to end last night. He later told Gu Yanran that there was a very powerful computer expert among the people who messed with Kai Songyin. This is the second update. The monthly votes have been delivered at 8,900 plus updates. It's the third update today. Remind everyone not to forget your recommendation votes. The third update was at 7 p.m. There were only 2 days left until the end of the month. The double monthly votes were continuing. Do you still have monthly votes? P.S. Okay, the initial plan is to try it out tomorrow night. The updates will be released at about 10 or 15 minutes past 12. You don't have to stay up late to wait. You can watch it as soon as you wake up in the morning. Mwah. Chapter 755. This was truly a case of the expert observing the artistry, while the layman enjoying the show. Yesterday, the netizens online had only seen a big drama of magical realism. However, many computer experts also discovered that there was an invisible hand manipulating the situation behind the scenes. They expressed their professional opinions on Weibo. There was a team of computer experts behind the entire incident, and the team members coordinated methodically. There were so many searches, so many resources, as well as the amount of computing power needed to mine the IP, as well as the equipment requirements. All of this means that this wasn't a coincidence. It was a premeditated, planned, and executed cyber hacking that took a long time to plan and invest a large amount of manpower and resources. There are only a few organizations like this in the entire world. Let's wait and see which hacker organization will claim responsibility for this incident. Gu Yanran brought Yi Xian to Tan Dongbang's official residence. She didn't have enough eyes to take in everything on the way there. The famous number 32 Willow Alley, a place she had never been able to enter, had now opened its doors for her. She raised her head slightly and wore a reserved smile as she leisurely walked down the long hallway to Tan Dongbang's office. There were 2 staff members standing at the door. When they saw them enter, one of them leaned over to push open the office's thick, dark brown oak door. Gu Yanran smiled and said, "Thank you," before leading Yi Xian inside. Yi Xian's expression was calm from beginning to end, as though nothing there could surprise him. Gu Yanran was quite satisfied with his attitude and introduced him to Tan Dongbang with a smile. This is Yi Xian. He's a computer expert. Tan Dongbang extended his hand to Yi Xian. Hello. Yi Xian shook his hand and smiled. Prime Minister Tan, I didn't expect you to look younger than on TV. I'm joking. Tan Dongbang wasn't in the mood to exchange pleasantries, so he asked Gu Yanran directly, You said there's a computer expert. What's going on? Gu Yanran nudged Yi Xian. Go ahead and explain it to Prime Minister Tan. Yi Xian nodded and took out his laptop from the briefcase he was carrying to demonstrate to Prime Minister Tan. I was watching this incident last night and was curious at the time. I looked up the IP address of the Long Weibo account, but I didn't expect that even with my abilities I could only find it in a French library. Tan Dongbang was very disappointed. He frowned and said, Our people also found out about this. That's not all. His IP address was heavily disguised. I used some tricks and finally found out that his transfer was done directly through the Nanda satellite. Yi Xian's words were the main point. Prime Minister Tan, who can directly connect through the satellite and disguise the IP address. There aren't many people like that, right? Yi Xian's words almost directly pointed out that the alternate account was an insider. Tan Dongbang had long suspected that someone from the inside was against him. Otherwise, how could they have investigated their affairs so thoroughly? Yi Xian's words were exactly what he wanted, so his attitude became much warmer. He even called the staff over to ask Yi Xian and Gu Yanran if they wanted tea or coffee. Yi Xian ordered coffee, Gu Yanran ordered tea, and Tan Dongbang also ordered tea. They also asked the staff to send some snacks over, and the three of them ate as they chatted. During lunch, Gu Nianji scrolled through Weibo on her phone. When she saw the judgment of the computer experts on Weibo, she could not help but be speechless. How skilled did they have to be able to determine that her actions yesterday were a team effort? She was obviously the one who wanted to cause trouble on a whim, so she went against Mrs. Tan and Kai Songyin's press release. These people really knew how to clean up the mess. The corners of Gu Nianji's lips curled up into a mocking smile. She logged onto her own Weibo and used another alternate account to comment. Computer experts, if you determine that it was a team effort, can you cover up the fact that the Prime Minister's wife misappropriated campaign funds, used high-quality counterfeit patented jewelry, and allowed her daughter to wear stolen jewelry? Where are your morals? They've been eaten by dogs. Ma Chichi quickly followed up. This is a good job of cleaning up the mess. I give the computer experts 99 points. 1 point less is because I don't want you to get arrogant. Her Weibo post was quickly pushed to the top. Even passers-by expressed that they could not let the hackers have their way. Hacker organization. These people's imagination is better than their computer skills. Ma Chichi covered her mouth and laughed happily. Gu Nianji glanced at her and whispered, Prime Minister Tan and the others will definitely not let this go. You should calm down and not spill the beans to anyone. Although she was not afraid of them, the various troubles that would come from this would still give her a headache, so she wanted to avoid it as much as possible. I know. Do I need you to tell me? Also, how did yesterday's incident develop to such a dramatic conclusion? To be honest, I'm also confused. So don't worry. Even if someone tries to get information out of me, they won't be able to get anything out of me because I don't even know what happened myself. Ma Chichi giggled as she finished her lunch in big bites. Then she went back to her room to sleep. Gu Nianji looked at Weibo for a while more before logging out. The Wuxia Imperial Supreme Procurator's department responsible for supervising the election was called the Campaign Office. It was located on the highest floor of the Supreme Procuratorate building. Kai Songyin had been brought there for questioning last night. She and Tan Dongbang were not ignorant fools. It was just that she had lived like a princess for many years and was bossy and arrogant, so she was not used to the environment there. Naturally, she did not say a word and kept repeating, I want to see my lawyer. The Procuratorate had interrogated her for an entire night but had not been able to pry her mouth open, so they felt very vexed. Meanwhile, the team of lawyers sent by the Tans had also arrived at the entrance of the Supreme Procuratorate and were holding a press conference at the main entrance. Hello, friends from the media. We are not here today to talk about benefits or build relationships. We are here for an innocent citizen of the empire who has been implicated. Although my client is the wife of the Prime Minister, she is first and foremost a citizen and enjoys the rights that a citizen should have. The reporter the Tans had found was Jean Wani, a lawyer from the JD law firm. She was no longer the small lawyer that people used to use as a shield. She was now a lawyer who could take charge of matters on her own. Her hair was combed short and she was wearing Issey Miyake's latest business suit. She wore heels that were almost 3 inches high. Soon, the news of Jean Wani holding a press conference for her client, Kai Song-in, at the main entrance of the Supreme Procuratorate immediately spread like wildfire on Weibo. The video of the press conference was being shared everywhere. When Gu Nianji was bored in class, she couldn't help but take out her phone to check the latest situation. When she saw Jean Wani's video, Gu Nianji's hand paused. If she remembered correctly, this woman had been intimate with brother Xiong for a period of time. This was the third watch. It was the third watch today. Remind everyone not to forget your recommendation votes. The third watch at 7 p.m. It was the last 2 days of the month, and the double monthly votes were continuing. Do you still have monthly votes? P.S. I'm talking about tomorrow night, which is Monday's update. It will be released in the wee hours. I'll give it a try and see how it goes. The update on Sunday would still be at the same time. You don't have to stay up late to wait. You can watch it the first thing you do when you wake up. Moi. Chapter 756. The last time she interacted with Jean Wani, Su Piaohong was still bouncing around her and Hua Xiaoheng. She was so full of fighting spirit at that time and wouldn't let go of Hua Xiaoheng. Dou Qingyan and Su Piaohong were all chased away by her, but it was useless. Now she still broke up with Hua Xiaoheng. Gu Nianji didn't care about the marriage certificate at all. To her, it was a piece of paper that could be invalidated at any time. Gu Nianji's emotions were complicated after she snapped out of her thoughts. She sighed and forwarded the video to Yin Shixiang. In less than a minute, Yin Shixiang texted her back. There was nothing else, just a question mark. Gu Nianji nodded with a smile and typed 3 words. Jean Wani. Yin Shixiang? Did she not remember or was she playing dumb? Gu Nianji pouted and sent a haha before ignoring Yin Shixiang. Yin Shixiang looked at Gu Nianji's haha on his phone and felt uncomfortable all over. He looked at Jean Wani on the video and thought about Gu Nianji's attitude. He couldn't help thinking that if it was Chi-Chi she wouldn't have said half of what she wanted to say, but when he thought about Ma Chi-Chi he suddenly understood what Gu Nianji meant by haha. Oh no, this girl wouldn't think there was something going on between him and Jean Wani, would she? If she told Ma Chi-Chi about this, should she explain? Should she explain? Should she explain? After thinking about it for a while, Yin Shixiang sighed and surrendered to Gu Nianji. He sent her a text message, "Little Grand, I was wrong." Seeing the text, Gu Nianji smiled and replied, "It's good to know your mistakes and correct them." This matter was considered over. Yin Shixiang and Jean Wani probably hadn't really developed anything, otherwise he wouldn't have said that. It was fine if there was some ambiguity between adult men and women. Without ambiguity, how could there be a follow-up? Because there were too few opportunities for love at first sight, couldn't he let everyone test it out? It was fine as long as it didn't cross the line. Because of Gu Nianji's video, Yin Shixiang also began to pay attention to the Supreme Procurator's progress. He went to report to Hua Xiaoheng. Hua Xiao, the Tan, sent a lawyer to the Procuratorate to demand for her. Hua Xiaoheng said without looking up, "If the Procuratorate hasn't completed the procedures after one night, I think the Prosecutor General will have to be replaced." Yin Shixiang was stunned. Huh? You know everything? Yeah, I don't know anything. Hua Xiaoheng looked up from his computer and asked calmly, "Why are you interested in the Tan's lawyer? Is it because of Jean Wani?" Yin Shixiang almost knelt down. Who said Hua Xiao and Nianji were not a couple? Come at me. I'll beat you to death. The two of them even focused on the same thing. Of course not. Yin Shixiang scratched his head. But why do you all think that I would pay attention to Jean Wani? You don't know? Hua Xiaoheng scolded him coldly. If you don't know, it seems like the Special Forces training isn't intense enough. Yin Shixiang quickly stood up straight and said loudly, "Reporting to Chief, I was wrong. Nothing is better than being able to correct one's mistakes. You may leave." Hua Xiaoheng waved his hand to dismiss him. Yin Shixiang heard this and thought of the text Gu Nianji had sent him. He almost knelt down again and wanted to ask, "Chief, are you monitoring my phone?" Of course he wouldn't dare ask even if he had 100 guts. Yin Shixiang didn't even dare to look up as he left Hua Xiaoheng's office. Hua Xiaoheng glanced at the door and shook his head. What did the Special Forces do? It was intelligence work that involved observing people's words and expressions every day. What did you mean by telling me that you couldn't understand a woman who admired you? You must be kidding me. Yin Shixiang returned to his office and sat down. His back was soaked in cold sweat. He could swear that he didn't have any feelings for Jean Wani, but he knew very well that Jean Wani didn't have any feelings for him. However, he hadn't explicitly rejected her, mostly because he didn't have any bad feelings for her. That was why he would go out once out of 3 times she asked him out. They would go to a movie, go to the bookstore, play ball, go hiking, so it turned out that many people had unknowingly seen them as a couple. Thinking about it this way, Yin Shixiang also felt a little wronged. It was just a normal relationship between a man and a woman. Jean Wani hadn't said a word about liking him, so what could he do? Tell her that she didn't like him? Wouldn't Jean Wani look at him as if he was an idiot? Then she would say to him, "Which eye of yours saw me say that I liked you?" If it had been in the past, Yin Shixiang would have retorted confidently, "What's wrong? Can't I follow Jean Wani?" But now he didn't have that much confidence. Why? It was as if there was a trace of worry in his heart. He would subconsciously feel that if he flirted with another woman, he would let someone down. Yin Shixiang sat in his seat with a knot in his stomach. Later, he felt that this didn't suit his personality, so he wiped his face and turned on the wall-mounted TV in the office to watch. He was still watching the live broadcast at the entrance of the procuratorate. At this time, Jean Wani had already led the legal team in. They were probably negotiating with the people from the procuratorate. On the TV, the live broadcast TV anchors saw that everyone had gone in, so they invited various legal experts to discuss the case. The legal experts discussed whether the procuratorate had the power to bypass the court to arrest people, and whether Kai Songyin's status as the prime minister's wife gave her immunity. Yin Shixiang wasn't a legal expert, so he wasn't interested in these things. However, he used his phone to record a portion of the experts' discussion and sent it to Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji had just finished class and was packing her things as she put her laptop into her laptop bag. Seeing the video Yin Shixiang sent, Gu Nianji pouted. These legal experts were all lying through their teeth. It wasn't that they didn't have the ability, nor was it that their professional skills weren't good enough. It was because they had a relationship of interest, so they were lying. Logically speaking, these people were all well-known scholars in the university and experts who had written a lot of legal works. Why would they say something that even a law student like her wouldn't accept? There was no other reason. They had probably been bribed by the Tans to intentionally divert attention and clear Kai Songyin's illegal behavior. Then again, were there no impartial legal experts? Of course there were, but these people weren't invited to appear on TV. These people who were invited were obviously speaking up for Kai Songyin and, in other words, Prime Minister Tan's family. Thinking about it carefully, it was obvious that Tan Dongbang was able to be elected because there were many people supporting him. How could he be taken down as soon as he took office? There would definitely be a counterattack. Gu Nianji had already calmed down after understanding the cause and effect. Also, why were these people discussing whether the Prime Minister's wife had immunity? She had only heard of diplomats having diplomatic immunity in other countries, and the President of the United States having the right to exempt others when he left office. She had never heard of any high-ranking officials in the Wuxia Empire having immunity. Were they trying to set a precedent so everyone could follow the rules in the future? Gu Nianji shook her head and turned off her phone to go to the cafeteria for dinner. After dinner, she returned to the dormitory. Gu Nianji felt a bit tired and didn't plan on going out to study. She stayed in the dormitory to review her homework. Ma Qiqi, on the other hand, went to study at night and didn't come back until 10 p.m. As soon as she came back, she called out loudly, "Nianji! Nianji! Are you in your room?" Gu Nianji poked her head out of her room and asked with confusion, "Yes, what is it?" "Did you watch TV? The TV was discussing Kai Songyin's case just now. Did you know? The lawyer hired by the Tans has already taken Kai Songyin back from the procuratorate." Ma Qiqi waved her arms angrily. "Tell me, how could they do this? They're still discussing it?" Gu Nianji was shocked. They had already discussed it all day, but it still hadn't stopped? Yes, these people are really something. Ma Qiqi pulled her to the living room to watch TV. "Look, I recognize this fat legal expert. He's the dean of the Z University Faculty of Law. He's always been at odds with our school and has always been unhappy that their faculty's ranking is lower than ours. Now it's their turn to show their faces." Gu Nianji finally looked closely at the legal expert on TV who had cleared the Tan's name. She was relieved to find out that none of the legal experts on the TV station were from the B University Faculty of Law. From the looks of it, the statement that the B University Faculty of Law represented the pinnacle of the Wuxia Empire's legal world did make some sense. Our faculty's teachers and seniors probably don't want to get involved in this mess, Gu Nianji said thoughtfully. No, maybe they're quietly watching these people act all high and mighty. Ma Qiqi put her hands on her hips and pointed at the TV seriously. Gu Nianji snickered. "Well said, but I don't want to watch them act all high and mighty anymore. Let's go expose them, okay?" "Expose? You want to cause trouble again? Ma Chichi was excited. Hurry up, hurry up. It's not that I want to cause trouble again. Gunyanji didn't know whether to laugh or cry as she stood up. It's that these people have gone too far and are treating the audience like fools. Gunyanji walked into her room and tested a few small apps on her phone that she had installed long ago. These apps could help her make internet calls while hiding her real IP address. In order to achieve her goal of confusing the other party, Gunyanji planned to use the fixed IP of 32 Willow Alley to disguise herself. That way, even if the other party had a particularly powerful expert, they would only be able to find the fixed IP of 32 Willow Alley, which was the office of the Prime Minister. Hee, you can check further down. Walking out of the room, Gunyanji handed her phone to Ma Chichi. Here, Chichi, be the child who reveals the emperor's new clothes. God will bless you with everything you want. She winked at her as she showed Ma Chichi a paragraph she had written on her laptop. Ma Chichi understood what she meant and thought about it for a moment before finding the main point. Political programs on TV usually had a segment where the audience called and discussed with the experts and the host. Ma Chichi used this opportunity to call in. The microphone on Gunyanji's phone could change her voice. When Ma Chichi called, it was a young man's voice. She said to the host and the legal experts present, "I'm a normal audience member. I'm very disappointed in your program and the experts. First of all, the Procuratorate didn't arrest anyone. They only asked Kai Songyin to go back and assist in the investigation. May I ask what your program and experts mean by distorting normal working procedures into arrest? Secondly, there has never been such a thing as immunity in our country. Yet, the Dean of Z University's Faculty of Law, who flaunts the righteousness of the law, could say such blatant words for the powerful to bully others. Doesn't your conscience hurt?" Gunyanji knew that Ma Chichi's paragraph would definitely be cut out by the TV station, so she directly recorded it and uploaded it on her alternate account. She had so many alternate accounts, so any one of them would be enough to confuse the public. She guessed correctly. Kai Songyin's case was very popular. The TV station didn't expect this. Even if they cut out the part where Ma Chichi called in, many people still heard it. Also, Gunyanji uploaded the video of the TV station to Weibo, and it quickly went viral. Therefore, the image of the Dean of the Z University Faculty of Law with a fat head and big ears became a meme. It was a big, fierce-looking face with the words, "Doesn't your conscience hurt?" Below it was written, "This is the worst time my conscience has ever been smeared." This was the first episode of 3,500 words. Today was the last day of April. Everyone hurry up and cast your monthly votes. The monthly votes were 9,400 plus episodes at 1 p.m. and the third episode at 7 p.m. P.S. Thank you to Bagel16, _Sing, and Bookfriend 201704162130300180 for each tipping 10,000 Chidian coins yesterday. Mwah. Chapter 757. The emoticon "Doesn't your conscience hurt?" went viral on the internet. Even the TV stations did not expect it. The Dean of Z University's Faculty of Law issued a stern warning on Weibo to those who used and spread the emoticons, saying that they had violated his image rights. He also said that he would send a lawyer's letter to the person who made the emoticons, saying that it was slander. As soon as this Weibo post came out, the netizens were dumbfounded. Everyone had been using emoticons for so many years, but they had never seen something like this. Is this really illegal? Of course there was no such thing. There were so many celebrities who had been made into memes. If this was really an infringement, would the court be able to sue them? Moreover, would those celebrities give up such a great opportunity to become rich and famous? Even if you used your knees to think, it would be impossible. After this Weibo post came out, legal professionals quickly came up to explain to everyone. Many of them were B University's law students. They left a comment under the Weibo account of the Dean of Z University's Faculty of Law, citing only one legal clause. When a public figure chooses to appear in public, his or her image is considered a public product, and he or she is not allowed to object to others taking photos or using them for dissemination. In other words, if the dean of the law department did not go to the TV station to be an expert and record a program, then it was indeed illegal to use his private photo as a meme package. It violated his portrait rights. However, the original picture that everyone used to make the emoji package was a screenshot of the law department's public broadcast on the television. This was considered a public product, and it had already lost its status as the subject of personal portrait rights. Furthermore, they could not object to others remaking it. In other words, you can't become a public figure to gain fame and fortune, but at the same time, you want everyone to treat you like an ordinary citizen and protect your fragile heart. Public figures have their own pressures and costs. When the dean of the Faculty of Law saw that everyone was commenting on his Weibo, he finally couldn't take it anymore. He quietly deleted his Weibo post that threatened to send a lawyer's letter, and at the same time, logged off his Weibo account. However, because of this incident, his image was greatly affected. After careful consideration, Senior Colonel Z decided to remove him from his position as the head of the law department. Kai Songin's case hadn't even started yet, but a legal expert had quietly fallen from grace. Gu Nianji and Ma Qiqi followed the progress of the case and thought it was amazing. Qiqi, how many people do you think will be affected by this case? It's up to them. If you win, you'll gain both fame and fortune. If you lose, you'll have to pay the price. As the Tan family's lawyer, Jean Wani was very dedicated to the case. She had done a great job by bringing Kai Songin back from the procuratorate. But the case wasn't over yet. Prime Minister Tan, your wife's case is more complicated. Currently, the most important case is the embezzlement of your campaign funds. If you're not careful, this case could implicate you. Jean Wani cautiously reminded Tan Dongbang. She looked at the dispirited Kai Songin and then at Tan Dongbang, whose face was full of heartache. She stood up and said, "You and your wife should have a good discussion. I'll head back first." After Jean Wani left, Tan Dongbang immediately closed the office door and walked over to Kai Songin. "Songin, you've worked hard. They didn't do anything?" Kai Song. Teet Kai shook. Kai said, "Teet. Have said. T Jean of have ye. Of also got. I said have deans." Tan Dongbang hugged Kai Songin and patted her back. "Little darling is very worried about you. Do you want to go back and see her? Did you scare her? This child has never seen anything like this. She better not be traumatized. Should I take her to see a psychiatrist?" Kai Songin's heart ached at the thought of Tan Guren. Yes, he was a little scared. He hasn't come out of his room for the whole day. As Tan Dongbang spoke, his phone suddenly rang. He took it out to see it was a call from Gu Yenran. He quickly swiped it open to answer. "Hello, Miss Gu." Gu Yenran replied, "Prime Minister Tan, I'm almost at the Prime Minister's official residence. I heard that Madam is back. Is that true?" "Yes, I just got back. Do you want to talk to her?" Tan Dongbang said as he passed the phone to Kai Songin. "It's Gu Yenran." "Gu Yenran?" Kai Songin frowned. "Why would I answer her call in my current condition? She wholeheartedly wants to help you." Tan Dongbang saw that Kai Songin had misunderstood Gu Yenran, so he quickly explained for her. "Everyone was avoiding you that night. She was the only one who came to ask what happened. Later, she brought a computer expert to help us investigate the origins of those Weibo secondary accounts. She helped us a lot." Kai Songin only answered the phone when she heard Tan Dongbang say that. "Hello." Gu Yenran heard Kai Songin's voice and was very happy. "Mrs. Tan? You're back? That's great." Kai Songin's lips twitched as she replied listlessly, "Yeah, I just got back not long ago. Thank you for your concern." "Mrs. Tan, you're being too polite." Gu Yenran quickly expressed her loyalty. "Don't be so polite. I'll be there soon. We can discuss your case. I have some news to tell you." Kai Songin still felt warm and comfortable at Gu Yenran's enthusiasm. Her voice softened. "Okay, thank you." Not long after, Gu Yenran arrived at the door of Prime Minister Tan's office. However, she didn't go in this time. Instead, she said, "Prime Minister Tan, I'm looking for your wife for a private matter. How about we go back to your home to talk?" Tan Dongbang thought about it and agreed. "Miss Gu is very thoughtful. Let's go home and talk." In other words, they would go back to their personal residential area at the Prime Minister's official residence. Privacy was better there. Tan Dongbang knew that even if surveillance was required, personal residences couldn't be monitored. They returned to Tan Dongbang and Kai Songin's room at the Prime Minister's official residence. As soon as Gu Yenran walked in, she was stunned by the luxury and exquisiteness of the room. The astonishment in her eyes flashed, but it quickly disappeared in her gentle smile. Kai Songin invited her to sit down and personally made a cup of coffee for her. "Mrs. Tan, you're too kind." Gu Yenran bowed and accepted the coffee. She glanced at Tan Dongbang, who was sitting to the side. "Prime Minister Tan, Mrs. Tan, I came here this time to talk to you about something." "Miss Gu, please go ahead." Gu Yenran took out a document from her little sachet. This is a letter of authorization from the Xie family in France. I spent $1 million to buy the rights to use the appearance of this sapphire teardrop pendant diamond necklace from the Xie family. Therefore, the high-quality imitation jewelry is real, but it's not a copyright infringement. In other words, this was an act of authorization. Oh, really? Kai Songyin was pleasantly surprised. How could I accept that? I've made you spend so much money. She opened the document and began to read it carefully. There were 3 documents. One in French, one in English, and one in Mandarin. Kai Songyin's French and English were very good, so she was able to read all 3 documents. After she finished reading, she was very shocked. $1 million is actually just for the rights to use the appearance of a piece of jewelry? Yes, there's also a serial number. Gu Yanran pointed at the string of numbers on the document. This represents the identity certificate of your necklace. It's also valuable. Tan Dongbang also read the document, and his expression was very conflicted. I didn't think the Xie family would be so good at doing business. It's really beyond my expectations. Even the appearance of a necklace had to be patented, and no one was allowed to copy it. If they wanted to copy it, they would have to discuss the rights to use it with them. Prime Minister Tan, the Xies usually don't issue this kind of certificate. This time they specifically gave me this because of my father, and they only asked for a friendship price. Gu Yanran's carefree attitude toward $1 million left a deep impression on Tan Dongbang and Kai Songyin. It wasn't like they hadn't seen money before, and their net worth was more than 10 times that $1 million. But even for them, it was still very difficult to easily take out $1 million as a favor. $1 million is only a friendship price. Kai Songyin only wanted to chuckle. Gu Yanran continued, also that necklace is my birthday present to you. Look at the date of use of this patent. It's your birthday. Gu Yanran had spent a lot of effort to buy this certificate from the Xies. That was because the Xies had originally refused, and they didn't care about the dignity of the Wuxia Empire's new first lady. They only said that there would be a price to pay for infringement. Later, Gu Yanran had to transfer one of her father's patents to obtain this certificate from the Xies. The Xies said that $1 million was a friendship price, so it really was a friendship price. That was because compared to the value of the patent that Gu Yanran had given up, the $1 million was only a front for outsiders to see. This was the second update, and the monthly votes were 9,400 plus updates. Today was the last day of April, so my dear friends, hurry up and cast your monthly votes. Don't worry, my dear friends, if there are more votes, I will continue to repay the debt and update in May, 7 p.m. the third update. Mwah. Chapter 758. Thank you so much. Kai Songyin grabbed Gu Yanran's hand and was indescribably grateful. Miss Gu, you're the best. She couldn't help but cry. Gu Yanran patted her back gently with a comforting and virtuous expression. Tan Dongbang sat across from them with a smile and thought the scene was strangely harmonious. Kai Songyin felt much better after crying for a while. Tan Dongbang walked over and took her hand to stand up. He said gently, "Go wash your face in the bathroom and take a shower. You look so haggard." Kai Songyin nodded quickly. "I'll go clean up." Tan Dongbang walked her to the bathroom door, and Kai Songyin reminded him quietly, "The imitation jewelry incident isn't actually that serious. The most important thing is the embezzlement of campaign funds. Lawyer Jean said that's the main issue." "I understand. I'll ask Gu Yanran later." Tan Dongbang gave her a look. Kai Songyin had been married to him for many years, so she immediately understood what he meant. The main issue with embezzlement of campaign funds was the deficit. The $260,000 spent on the gown was only the tip of the iceberg. A large portion of the funds went into their own pockets. If the Procuratorate did not let go of this matter and wanted to thoroughly investigate their campaign finance, then most of their assets would be lost. Kai Songyin went to the bathroom to wash up, and Tan Dongbang invited Gu Yanran to sit in the small living room. The room was covered with thick gold velvet curtains during the day, and a pear blossom chandelier was on. Gu Yanran sat under the pear blossom chandelier. She was quiet and beautiful like a blooming pear blossom. Tan Dongbang's eyes flashed with amazement. Composing himself, he picked up a document Jean Wani had left behind and smiled. "Miss Gu, my wife and I are very grateful for your help. Since you were thinking for us, we won't treat you as an outsider. This is something our lawyer left behind. Take a look and see where we should start." Gu Yanran smiled and couldn't help feeling a little proud. She had finally broken into the highest circles of the Wuxia Empire. And all of this wasn't because of Gu Nianji. It was because of herself and Gu Yanran. She sat on the chaise longue with her chin slightly raised. Her skin was as white as jade under the pear blossom chandelier. She accepted the document from Tan Dongbang with a smile and read it carefully. Time ticked by. Gu Yanran's expression didn't change at all, but her heart was in turmoil. The lawyer's document made it very clear that the crux of this case was the embezzlement of campaign funds. As for the last two cases, whether it was the jewelry infringement or the suspected stolen jewelry, they were not within the jurisdiction of the Wuxia Empire. Even if they were, their importance could not be compared to the embezzlement of campaign funds. So Tan Dongbang was showing this to her because he wanted her to help with the embezzlement of campaign funds? If they were to put in the effort, it would not be something that could be settled with $1 million USD. Gu Yanran fell silent. It wasn't impossible for her to spend all her capital, but it depended on whether the profits exceeded her capital. She was a businesswoman by nature. She could do a business that would cost her life, but she would never do a business that would cost her money. However, political investment was another matter. Profits and losses could not be judged by the numbers on the books. Prime Minister Tan, these are legal documents. To be honest, I'm not very familiar with them. Gu Yanran made up her mind and slowly closed the document. As expected, she saw a trace of disappointment appear in Tan Dongbang's eyes. She held the document in her hand and said, "If it's possible, I would like to take this document back and show it to my legal advisor. What do you think?" Tan Dongbang had thought Gu Yanran was unwilling to help and was a bit disappointed. However, seeing that she was only being cautious, he was happy again. He looked at her and nodded with a smile. "Okay, of course you can take it back and look at it as long as you want. This is only a copy." "Okay, no problem." Gu Yanran stood up and shook Tan Dongbang's hand in farewell. "Then I'll go back first. When Mrs. Tan comes out, please say goodbye for me." "You're too polite. Songyin already treats you as her best friend, so there's no need to be so formal." Tan Dongbang already treated Gu Yanran as one of his own. After all, everyone liked the god of wealth. Gu Yanran returned to her apartment with the legal document. Propping her head on her hand, she leaned back in the chaise lounge and thought for a long time. It wasn't that she didn't understand the legal document, but what she said to Tan Dongbang just now was just an excuse to delay. She had to think carefully about how she could contribute to the case in order to maximize her own benefits. She wasn't an idiotic saint, and she definitely wouldn't be selfless in helping others. However, she didn't have much peace and quiet before her intercom rang. Gu Yanran answered the intercom and asked, "What is it?" It was the security guard at the precinct. "Miss Gu, the Prime Minister's daughter, Miss Tan, is here to visit." Gu Yanran froze. "Tan Guerin?" "That's right." The security guard couldn't help but look Tan Guerin up and down as he spoke. She was so beautiful, even more beautiful than on TV. "Okay, let her in." Gu Yanran got up and went to the bedroom to change. When Tan Guerin came to her door and rang the doorbell, Gu Yanran was already waiting in the living room. She opened the door and smiled at Tan Guerin. Extending her arms, she said, "Miss Tan, your presence brings light to my humble abode." Tan Guerin smiled at her and also extended her arms. The two of them hugged and touched each other's cheeks to perform a Western greeting. However, after entering, Tan Guerin knelt down in front of Gu Yanran and performed a Western greeting. Gu Yanran was shocked and quickly helped Tan Guerin up. "Miss Tan, what are you doing?" Tan Guerin's eyes quickly filled with tears. She sobbed and said to Gu Yanran, "Miss Gu, I came to beg you without telling my mommy and daddy. I'm begging you, please save my mommy." She found out from Tan Dongbang that Gu Yanran had helped them settle the counterfeit jewelry case, but Gu Yanran refused to help with the embezzlement of campaign funds. Now that everyone was in danger, their relatives and friends were all watching and unwilling to help. Gu Yanran was the only one who volunteered to help. Tan Guerin secretly came to find her, hoping to convince her to agree to help her family get through this difficult time. Although she didn't know much about the world, she knew how her father, the Prime Minister, would be affected if her mother went to jail. Gu Yanran didn't say a word and waited for Tan Guerin to finish crying before handing her a glass of milk. "Sit down and drink." Tan Guerin accepted it with both hands and said hopefully, "Miss Gu, you're so nice and capable. You'll definitely help my mommy, right?" Gu Yanran sat beside her with a smile and patted her head. "Miss Tan, you're so adorable. I've always wanted a sister like you since I was young." She didn't have to be too smart. People who were too smart were annoying. "Miss Gu, you flatter me." Tan Guerin smiled shyly. "If you're willing, I can call you sister." "Well, that's not necessary. I have a younger sister, so she won't be happy if you call me sister. Gu Yanran spoke meaningfully as she stood up and walked to the window to look at the blue sky and white clouds outside. She was still making the final decision in her mind. If she helped, she would definitely want more in return. Gu Yanran narrowed her eyes and turned to look at Tan Guiran. Miss Tan, are you willing to save your mommy at all costs? Yes, what do you want? My daddy will agree. I'll do whatever you want me to do, Tan Guiran said urgently. Tan Guiran said urgently. Her eyes were still red and slightly swollen. It was obvious how much she had cried these past few days. Gu Yanran patted her shoulder. Miss Tan, I hope you remember what you said today. Will you swear an oath? Tan Guiran nodded and raised her right hand. I, Tan Guiran, swear today that if Miss Gu Yanran can save my mommy, Daddy and I are willing to do anything for you. Haha, you don't have to do anything. Just remember what I've done and don't burn bridges or complain about it in the future, Gu Yanran said meaningfully as she draped an arm over Tan Guiran's shoulder. That arm was very cold. Tan Guiran couldn't help but shiver. However, she still looked at her expectantly, hoping to see an affirmative answer from her face. Gu Yanran finally nodded. Okay, I'll try. However, I can't guarantee that your mommy will be fine. I can only promise that this incident will not involve your daddy. That was good. Tan Guiran thought about it. What she didn't want the most was for this incident to involve her daddy. As long as Daddy was fine, even if something happened to Mommy, it wouldn't be a big deal. Okay, thank you, Miss Gu. Tan Guiran bowed sincerely to Gu Yanran. After she left, Gu Yanran picked up the phone and called Tan Dongbang. Prime Minister Tan, Miss Tan just left my place. Tan Dongbang was very surprised. Little darling? Why did she go to your place? Miss Tan was very worried about Mrs. Tan's safety and specifically came to beg me. However, my abilities are limited. I told her that I can only guarantee that this incident won't involve you, Prime Minister Tan, but I can't guarantee that Mrs. Tan can escape unscathed. Prime Minister Tan, what do you think? It was the third update. Today was the last day of April. Dear friends, please cast your monthly votes. Don't worry if there are more votes, I will continue to repay the debt and update in May. Tomorrow's update will be released at around 12:15 a.m., so it should be around the fourth update. I hope you can also cast your guaranteed monthly votes for the Major General in May. There were so many updates this month because they were motivated by the monthly votes. Moi. Chapter 759. How could this be? Tan Dongbang's brows furrowed. Miss Gu, is there really no other way? My wife and I grew up together and we've been in harmony for so many years. I can't let anything happen to her. Prime Minister Tan, you're so loyal. Mrs. Tan must have saved the entire planet in her past life for her to marry you. It was rare for Gu Yanran to have a sense of humor. Tan Dongbang admired this trait of hers very much. Miss Gu, you're too kind. We're husband and wife, so if anything happens to her, it'll happen to me. Therefore I hope Miss Gu can understand. Tan Dongbang lowered his voice to persuade Gu Yanran. Of course he could see further than Gu Yanran. Disregarding how much Kai Songyin had helped him, what status the Kais had, or how many years of love they'd shared, Kai Songyin was the wife of the Prime Minister. If there was a problem with the campaign funds, he couldn't let anything happen to her. Because this was closely related to him, there was no such thing as saving one person but not the other. If Kai Songyin had a problem with the campaign funds, he wouldn't be able to escape as the Prime Minister either. They would be bound together for good or bad. Gu Yanran's heart skipped a beat. She thought to herself that this Prime Minister Tan was quite capable. She originally only wanted to cling to the rich and powerful, but Tan Dongbang's refusal to abandon his wife made her look at him in a different light. An indescribable feeling rose in her heart. Why were all these men who were loyal to their wives and girlfriends the men of other families? After a moment of silence, Gu Yanran slowly said, Prime Minister Tan has a point. I'll think about it. Right, I saw the documents left behind by the lawyer, and I also want to see the financial accounts for your campaign team. Is it convenient for me to see them? Tan Dongbang froze. Those documents were confidential, so he'd made Kai Songyin the campaign team's financial manager. He only trusted his woman. Even lawyer Jean hadn't seen the entire account. If you're not willing to let me see even this, then I really can't help. I think you understand that even if you want to transfer funds, it won't be something that can be done in a short amount of time, Gu Yanran said and hung up politely. Think about it carefully. If you can't think of any other way, come back to me. Gu Yanran politely hung up the phone. Tan Dongbang was silent for a long time after he put down the phone. That night, he told Kai Songyin about Gu Yanran's request. Of course, he didn't mention that Gu Yanran had said she could only save one person. That kind of thing would only cause Kai Songyin to feel estranged from Gu Yanran. Tan Dongbang actually didn't want the two of them to become enemies at all. He only hoped that they could be harmonious sisters. Kai Songyin also refused to let Gu Yanran see the entire account. She pondered for a moment and said, "I'll take care of the accounts. Just give her a number and let her help raise the money." "That works too?" "Of course." Kai Songyin rolled her eyes at Tan Dongbang. "She's helping us like this because she really has too much money to burn? To you and me, isn't this as easy as lifting a finger? So whatever request she makes, just agree to it. Promises aren't worth much anyway. As long as she transfers the money to our campaign team's account, this matter will be over." Tan Dongbang thought about it carefully. It seemed like that was the only way. However, he still felt a bit uncomfortable when he thought about how his wife put profit above everything else. He had a feeling that Gu Yanran wasn't helping them completely for the sake of profit. He had a feeling that the way she looked at him contained something else. "Okay, I'll go talk to her and ask Lawyer Jean to see how we should proceed with this." As Tan Dongbang spoke, he adjusted Kai Songyin's blankets. "Go to sleep. I still have some work to do." Kai Songyin sighed in relief and kissed Tan Dongbang's cheek before falling asleep. The past few days had been too tiring for her. She really couldn't take it anymore. However, when she found out who was trying to harm her, she definitely wouldn't let them get away with it. The next day, Jean Wani went to Tan Dongbang's official residence to ask him about the case. "Mr. Prime Minister, how would you like to defend Madam?" Tan Dongbang laid out his problems one by one. "First of all, about the evening gown. Do you have a way to cover up this matter?" "Evening gown? Well, that's easier. You just have to return the evening gown to the campaign team and say that it was rented from the supplies purchased by the team. You can pay the market price for the gown." Jean Wani began to give them ideas. "But the news once said that my wife bought the gown with her own money. What should we do?" Tan Dongbang was a bit greedy. He wanted Kai Songyin to be exonerated from the case without damaging their family's reputation. Jean Wani sighed and spread her hands helplessly. "Mr. Prime Minister, that's not how things are calculated. Right now you need to solve the legal issue. As for the press release, it can be false flattery and doesn't involve legal issues. It's just a moral issue, so you have to be more open-minded. In other words, the press release's shameless boasting would forever be there." For the first time, Tan Dongbang felt resentment towards Kai Songyin. If she hadn't gone crazy and insisted on changing their persona, they wouldn't have been so passive. They wouldn't have been able to catch a tiny loophole and try to drag him down. But he didn't consider that if Kai Songyin hadn't created a persona for their family, how could he have stood out from so many candidates and been remembered by the public? How could he have been elected president as a dark horse? This kind of thing was a double-edged sword. They couldn't just enjoy the benefits of one aspect and ignore the side effects. As an outsider, Jean Wani could clearly see that Tan Dongbang was a bit stubborn. However, he still perked up and discussed some details with Jean Wani before ending the day's meeting. When Gu Yanran called him that night to ask about him out of concern, Tan Dongbang couldn't help but complain to her, "Seriously, even if I can be exonerated now, my reputation will be ruined. How can I run for re-election in the future?" Gu Yanran quickly asked, "What is it? What did the lawyer say?" Tan Dongbang told her what Jean Wani had said. Gu Yanran played right into his hands and quickly said, "Prime Minister Tan, please be more open-minded. I think Lawyer Jean is right. Although it's bad for reputation, the public's memory is the shortest. As long as your wife's case is fine and there's a new hot topic in a few days, everyone will forget about the press release." Tan Dongbang thought to himself that the public's memory was short-lived, but his opponent would never. If he were his own opponent, he would also not let go of this point and wait for an opportunity to use it to damage his reputation in the future. However, he had no choice now. Even a professional lawyer said that, so he could only accept it. "Prime Minister Tan, don't worry. Your positive assets are too strong, so even if Mrs. Tan becomes a negative asset, your positive assets can pull her back up." Gu Yanran chuckled. Her voice was like a hook that reached into the phone and hooked into Tan Dongbang's heart through the electromagnetic waves. "Miss Gu, you're too good with words." Tan Dongbang felt sweet hearing it. "You can just call me Yanran. Always saying Miss Gu is too formal." "Okay, Yanran." Tan Dongbang slowly said the name like he was chewing on an olive, and the aftertaste was endless. Gu Yanran ended the call with Tan Dongbang and mulled it over in her room before finally calling Gu Nianji. It had been a week since Gu Nianji returned from Germany, but Gu Yanran still hadn't found a chance to talk to her. This time Gu Nianji finally picked up. Yi Xian was the one who had helped her get this number. Gu Nianji's previous number had already been disconnected. Nianji, you're finally back? How are you? Gu Yanran asked gently as if she was very concerned. Gu Nianji was very depressed. She didn't want to talk to Gu Yanran, but when she wanted to decline again today, her finger accidentally slipped to accept, so she had no choice but to pick up. I'm fine. Gu Nianji looked at her thick reference book. Do you need something? Nothing. It was your birthday 2 days ago, and I originally wanted to throw a birthday party for you, but unfortunately, it was the Prime Minister's inauguration. The Prime Minister and Mrs. Prime Minister invited me so warmly that I couldn't refuse, so I went. I didn't have time to celebrate your birthday, so don't blame me. This was the first night watch in May. Flipping back, there was the second night watch. Today was the fourth night watch. Please keep the monthly vote. P.S. Thank you to Meow Little Meow for the 10,000 Chidian coins yesterday. Mwah. Chapter 760. Gu Yanran's voice was low as she apologized to Gu Nianji gently. Gu Nianji's lips twitched. It's okay. I had a great birthday. She paused before asking Gu Yanran, have you been to see father recently? How is he? Don't you know how father is? Gu Yanran said tactfully. He's in your boyfriend's sphere of influence. I don't know. I broke up with Wuxia. Gu Nianji was getting impatient. If there's nothing else, I'm going to hang up. I still have a lot of homework to do. If Gu Yanran didn't care about her biological father, then Gu Nianji didn't think she needed to be a busybody. After Gu Nianji hung up, Gu Yanran held the phone and looked at the scenery outside the window. She slowly smiled. How nice. Gu Nianji broke up with Wuxiaoheng. This was reasonable. Gu Nianji had experienced that kind of kidnapping, so she didn't believe any man could take it. Wuxiaoheng was no exception. Her biggest support was probably gone, right? Gu Yanran truly sighed in relief. After that, Gu Yanran interacted with Tan Dongbang even more frequently. Tan Dongbang even gave Gu Yanran a position as a personal assistant in the Prime Minister's office so she could openly enter and exit the Prime Minister's official residence. Gu Yanran purposely befriended her, and even Tan Guirin became close friends with her. As for Kai Songyin, under the advice of her legal team and aides, she lived in seclusion and didn't show her face to avoid the public's continued attention on this matter. Because of this, she moved out of the Prime Minister's official residence and returned to the Tan's old house to live alone. After enduring like this for half a month, the trial of the First Lady's embezzlement of campaign funds was finally about to begin. Sister Gu, today is Friday. My mommy's trial will begin next Monday. I have to go back to accompany my mommy. Sister Gu, do you want to go back with me? Tan Guirin looked at Gu Yanran eagerly and hoped she would go with her. She heard that Kai Songyin's temper had been very bad recently, so Tan Guirin felt that Gu Yanran was especially good with words. She would definitely be able to make her mommy happy. Little darling, I've been very busy lately. The Prime Minister has a few meetings on the weekends, so I can't leave. Gu Yanran rejected her tactfully and said, actually, the person Mrs. Tan cares about the most is you. As long as you accompany your mommy will be very happy. Really? Tan Guirin sighed. She was in low spirits. She always felt that the person her mommy wanted to see the most was Daddy, but Daddy always said that he was busy. In the past half a month, he hadn't seen her mommy even once. Tan Guirin thought about it and went to find Tan Dongbang. Daddy, are you free this weekend? Mommy will be in court next Monday. Do you want to take some time to accompany mommy? Good girl, as long as your mommy sees you, she will be happy. You should bring Daddy to accompany your mommy more. Daddy is very busy and has a few meetings this weekend that can't be pushed back. Tan Dongbang's excuse was the exact same as Gu Yanran's. Tan Guirin pouted. She had no choice but to go to the Tan's old house alone to accompany Kai Songyin. Kai Songyin had lost a lot of weight in the past 2 weeks. After experiencing the drastic change in the world, she was no longer as arrogant as before. She waited at the door for a long time and only saw Tan Guirin arrive alone. Kai Songyin almost didn't hide the disappointment on her face, so Tan Guirin saw it clearly. Kai Songyin also felt sad, but she didn't know how to comfort her. She only grabbed her hand and murmured, Mommy, are you better? Mommy is fine. Little darling, you've lost weight. Kai Songyin snapped back to reality and grabbed Tan Guirin's hand to enter the house. What do you want to eat? Mommy will make it for you. Sure, I want to eat meat floss egg rolls. Mommy, can you make it for me? Tan Guirin shook Kai Songin's hand coquettishly. The truth was she didn't really like meat floss egg rolls, but it took a long time to make them and consumed a lot of energy. That way Kai Songin wouldn't keep thinking about unhappy things. Kai Songin understood her intentions and lovingly caressed her face. Okay, Mommy will make meat floss egg rolls for you. While Tan Guirin and Kai Songin were making meat floss egg rolls in the kitchen, Tan Dongbang and Gu Yenran were both in riding gear and racing on the East Mountain in the suburbs of the imperial capital. Mr. Prime Minister, what are your thoughts on Monday's case? A reporter had somehow snuck into the heavily guarded East Mountain racetrack and was holding up his phone to interview him. Tan Dongbang was shocked and jerked on the reins. The horse raised its front hooves high and almost stood up straight. The reporter dodged quickly to avoid the horse's hooves and came back from the side. He raised his phone and asked loudly, Prime Minister Tan, what are your thoughts on Madam's case on Monday? Who are you? How can you trespass on the East Mountain racetrack? Where are the security guards? The Secret Service? Where the hell are they? Gu Yenran saw the situation and quickly urged the horse forward to cover Tan Dongbang as he ran back. The reporter saw Gu Yenran and recognized her as the new Prime Minister's personal assistant. He quickly raised his phone to her. Miss Gu, do you know what the Prime Minister thinks about Monday's case? The Prime Minister didn't accompany Madam at this time and came to the East Mountain racetrack instead. Does this mean that the Prime Minister is confident about this case? Or is the rumored breakdown in the relationship between the Prime Minister and Madam Prime Minister? Gu Yenran froze and thought to herself that this reporter was so sharp. How did he get in here? With a serious expression, Gu Yenran reined in her horse and raised her eyebrows. This is the Prime Minister's horse racetrack. I'm warning you to leave quickly. Otherwise, when the security guards and Secret Service arrive, they will treat you as obstructing public safety. However, this reporter clearly had a backer if he was able to trespass in the heavily guarded area. Naturally, he wasn't intimidated by her words. Instead, he immediately took a picture with his phone and said, Miss Gu is so imposing. However, what you said was Prime Minister Tan's will and your own will. Gu Yenran was just about to say, my will is the Prime Minister's will, but she immediately realized it wasn't appropriate. She had almost been tricked by this reporter. She hid her anger and smiled. Don't be angry. I'm thinking about your safety. If you don't want to leave, that's up to you. There's a lounge over there. Would you like to rest there, drink some water and have some snacks? My apologies for not being a good host. Gu Yenran's sudden change in attitude made it difficult for the reporter to continue. He could only turn off his phone angrily and say, fine. I wish Miss Gu and Prime Minister Tan a happy weekend. After the reporter returned, this scene was immediately shown on TV. Tan Guirin and Kai Songin were in the kitchen making meat floss egg rolls as they chatted. The wall-mounted TV on the wall was turned on as usual. It was only to add some liveliness to the large, empty house. They didn't expect to see Tan Dongbang and Gu Yenran on TV all of a sudden. I've had enough of this. This is their weekend meeting? Kai Songin suddenly threw the dough on the floor. Do they think I'm an idiot? She angrily picked up her phone and dialed Tan Dongbang's number. It rang for a long time before someone picked up. Hello, who are you looking for? The gentle voice and slow tone was Gu Yenran's voice. Kai Songin felt a wave of anger rush to her head. She blurted out, why are you holding Dongbang's phone? Put him on the phone. Gu Yenran smiled and handed the phone to Tan Dongbang. Your wife is calling. She sat behind Tan Dongbang and continued massaging him. Tan Dongbang took the phone and called out with a smile, Songin, what is it? Is something wrong? What is it? How dare you ask me? Kai Songin was furious. Didn't you want to have a meeting? Why did you go to the Dongshan horse race? Why was Gu Yenran able to use your phone? Songin, don't panic. It's not gentlemanly at all to yell and scream. You really need to learn from Yenran when it comes to this. She has such a good temper and has never lost her temper in front of anyone. Tan Dongbang said leisurely, also she's my personal assistant, so of course she's in charge of my phone. Kai Songin almost vomited blood at Tan Dongbang's words. She was so angry that she wanted to lose her temper again, but Tan Dongbang continued, you're going to court next Monday. You can't act like this. You need to control your emotions. No matter how others provoke you, don't fall for their tricks. Did you watch TV today? Someone is purposely targeting me. Don't you believe me? Kai Songin finally calmed down after he said that. Really? You're really doing this for my own good? Of course. Yanran is also doing this for your own good. She said she wants to give you some resistance experiments so you won't be provoked in court. Tan Dongbang hung up after he finished speaking. It was the second night watch in May. It was an extra night watch for the 50,000 yuan that Heaven's Beggars had rewarded in April. Flipping back, there was still the third night watch. Today was the fourth night watch. Requesting a guaranteed monthly ticket. Chapter 761. Tan Dongbang wiped his face and felt that Kai Songyin's temper was getting worse and more unreasonable. In the past they could still talk, but now she was overly suspicious. He leaned back and happened to lean into Gu Yanran's arms. Gu Yanran sat behind him with a chiffon draped over her. Her hands were just right and gave him a very comfortable massage. The faint fragrance from her shower soon made Tan Dongbang drowsy. It was also that Friday afternoon that Ma Chichi packed her things and was going home for the weekend. "Nianji, do you want to go back with me? My parents really like you." Ma Chichi invited her warmly. Gu Nianji was a bit tempted. She really liked how Ma Chichi's mother felt, but after thinking about it, it wasn't good to always go to someone else's house. Especially since she had just been there not long ago. She couldn't really do that just because someone told her to. Gu Nianji thought about it and said, "I also like uncle and auntie a lot, but I still have a few reports to do this week. Maybe next time." Ma Chichi also knew that Gu Nianji was anxious to graduate early and had taken many classes and still had to do her thesis. She expressed her understanding and put both hands on her shoulders. Smiling, she said, "Okay, is it okay for you to stay here alone? Do you need someone to keep you company?" "It's really fine. I don't have time." "What company? Do you want to study with me?" Gu Nianji refused with a smile. "Hurry up and go. Isn't your father coming to pick you up?" Ma Chichi nodded. "My father's car is already downstairs. I'll go now." Go. Don't be so clingy. I'm not your boyfriend, so you don't have to be so attached." Gu Nianji teased and pushed Ma Chichi out. Gu Nianji didn't want to go anywhere and stayed at school to study hard. Ma Chichi went home for the weekend, so Gu Nianji stayed in the dorm alone. He Jichu called and asked, "Nianji, do you have plans for the weekend?" "Yes, I have 3 reports to write and just started my graduation thesis. I'll be thankful if I don't have to stay up late on the weekend." Gu Nianji smiled as she opened her room door to go to the living room to turn off the TV. Ma Chichi forgot to turn off the TV when she left. As soon as she picked up the remote control, she saw Gu Yanran appear on the television. She was wearing a snow-white riding outfit and riding on a red horse. She was talking to the reporters. Gu Nianji was shocked to discover that Gu Yanran had become the Prime Minister's personal assistant in just a few days. "Nianji, why aren't you talking?" He Jichu asked with concern when he heard the sudden silence on the other end of the line. Gu Nianji stared at the TV and said, "Professor He, turn on the TV and watch the news." He Jichu was standing in front of the window. When he heard this, he turned around and walked to the coffee table with the remote control. He bent down to pick it up and turned on the TV. In the news station, Gu Yanran's image was still on the screen, and the reporters were still talking to the anchor. Next Monday is the First Lady's first court hearing, but the Prime Minister doesn't seem to be worried at all. He's still leisurely racing with his personal assistant at Dongshan Racecourse. This could also mean that the Prime Minister was confident about Monday's case? Or has the Prime Minister given up? I don't think he'll give up. Everyone knows that although the Prime Minister's wife is the one appearing in court, the Prime Minister can't just stay out of this. The anchor and the reporters started discussing the matter. However, Gu Nianji's focus had already changed. She looked at the TV screen coldly and asked He Jichu, "Professor He, please say something. What is the relationship between Gu Yanran and me?" At the critical moment when she was kidnapped in Germany, Gu Yanran suddenly revealed that she wasn't Gu Xiangwen's biological daughter. It had been 3 to 4 weeks since her return, and Gu Yanran had only called once to tell her that she was fine and that she had broken up with Hua Xiaohan. After that, she hadn't contacted her again. Compared to Gu Yanran's attentive attitude before she went to Germany, it was like a completely different person. Gu Nianji didn't know if other sisters interacted with each other in the same way. Although she wasn't Gu Yanran's biological daughter, they had grown up together. Kinship was something that developed over time. However, looking at Gu Yanran's attitude toward her, could it be that Gu Yanran had also lost her memory? Ijichu was also watching the TV. He was amazed by Gu Yanran's exuberance. It was like the seeds of weeds. Even if they were stuffed under a rock, they would still germinate. Ijichu would still admire this kind of all-pervasive spirit if it was only for the sake of self-improvement. But the prerequisite was that you couldn't sacrifice other people's interests to achieve your own goals. He Zhichu thought about it for a while and said, just like you, Gu Yanran is Gu Xiangwen's daughter. However, if you don't like her, then just ignore her. What's the point of fighting with someone like that? I'm not fighting with her. I just find her annoying. I'm hanging up now. I still have a report to write. Gu Nianji hung up and ignored He Zhichu. He Zhichu slowly put down his phone and clenched his fists. His expression was dark. Gu Yanran was jumping up and down so hard. He could only hope that she still had a shred of rationality left. If she wanted to use her relationship with the Prime Minister to step on Gu Nianji, then she couldn't blame him for being merciless. On Monday, Gu Nianji originally had classes in the morning. However, in order to watch the live broadcast of the trial, she applied for leave and skipped class. She was alone in the dormitory, scrolling through her phone. This time, because it involved the First Lady, the trial couldn't be recorded. There was no video, only a text broadcast. Gu Nianji read line by line. When she saw Jin Wani's defense of the First Lady, Kai Songyin, she suddenly narrowed her eyes. What was Jin Wani trying to do with this kind of defense? The defense displayed on the phone was like this. Your Honorable Judge, according to Article 250 of our country's election law, the crime of misappropriation of campaign funds refers to a campaign team member taking advantage of his position to misappropriate campaign funds for personal use to carry out illegal activities, or misappropriating a large amount of campaign funds to carry out profit-making activities, or misappropriating a large amount of campaign funds and failing to return it after 3 months. This is the crime of misappropriation of campaign funds. We can see that the precondition for the crime of misappropriation of campaign funds is that the misappropriation of campaign funds is for personal use. According to the evidence, although the defendant, Kai Songyin, misappropriated campaign funds, she returned it to the campaign account within 3 months. There are bank accounts here to prove it. Furthermore, the defendant, Kai Songyin, is the campaign team's finance manager and the Prime Minister's wife. She never misappropriated campaign funds for personal use. It was all for the campaign and never carried out profit-making activities. The prosecutor disagreed and asked her. Kai Songyin sent out a press release saying that the evening gown worth $260,000 was self-funded, but it was actually campaign funds. How can this be considered as not being used for personal use? Jin Wani's defense was like this. As everyone knows, the press release is an unproven fact. After the press release, my client has never publicly admitted this in any situation. Furthermore, it was later proven that the sentence on the press release was actually added by a temporary employee of the campaign team on his own initiative. He has already been fired by the campaign team. Gu Nianji was speechless as she read up to this point. A temporary employee was able to dispel the prosecutor's suspicions? How could Jin Wani be so careless? As expected, the prosecutor immediately requested to summon the temporary employee, but Jin Wani refused to give up his contact information. Therefore, the prosecutor was relentlessly attacking her in court. She was in a difficult situation, so the situation was very unfavorable to Kai Songyin. Kai Songyin was able to maintain her smile at first, but it became harder and harder to smile as time went by. Jin Wani did not want to be outdone either. She engaged in a heated argument with the prosecutor. In the end, when the prosecutor was interrogating Kai Songyin, she lost control of her emotions. She pointed at the prosecutor in court and yelled, "Someone is obviously trying to mess with me." Mess with the Prime Minister? Do you think I don't know who's behind you? I'm telling you, even if you pull our Prime Minister down, it won't be your boss' turn to take over. What the hell? How dare you fight with us? The court was instantly in chaos. Even the text broadcast was interrupted for a while. When it appeared again later, it was the judge reprimanding Jin Wani and Kai Songyin. It was obvious that the words he used were biased towards the prosecutor. The situation was very unfavorable for Kai Songyin. This was the third update in May. It was an additional update of 50,000 Chidian dollars for Bagel 16 in April. Flipping back, there was still the fourth update. It was the fourth update today, asking for a guaranteed monthly vote. Chapter 762. Gu Nianji finished watching the live broadcast of the first trial and quickly sorted out a few suspicious points. First, Kai Songyin's legal team had directly admitted that she had misappropriated campaign funds. This was the biggest mistake. In a case like this, as long as there was a case of misappropriation of campaign funds, even if the funds were returned on time, the case would have already lost in terms of logic, even if the funds were returned on time. That was because the public would always remember that you had a wife and finance director who misappropriated campaign funds. If Tan Dongbang wanted to run for re-election in the future, Kai Songyin would almost guarantee that he would never be able to raise money again. So why did Jean Wani publicly admit it in her defense? Since there was a bank account to prove that the funds had been repaid within 3 months, it was fine to directly argue that it was a normal use of campaign funds. Since it was all cash inflows and outflows, Gu Nianji didn't believe that Jean Wani hadn't consulted a professional accountant. So why did they have to leave such a big loophole? Second, it was even funnier to push the nonsense of the press release to a temporary worker. This kind of reason was fine to fool the netizens, but to use it as a legitimate reason in court, it was like they didn't want Kai Songyin to die safely enough, so they directly planted a ticking time bomb for themselves? In conclusion, Gu Nianji could only see one goal in doing this, and that was to target Kai Songyin. Prime Minister Tan had perfectly extricated himself from this case, and Kai Songyin would most likely not be sentenced because it would be very difficult to convict her of breaking the law. However, her reputation was completely ruined, so she would no longer be able to help Tan Dongbang in the election. It could be said that this case would only ruin Kai Songyin alone. That was interesting. Gu Nianji turned off her phone and propped her head on her hand as she mused on the desk. After the live broadcast of the trial, some people were happy while others were sad. Tan Guirin watched as her mother lost control during the trial and was finally taken away by the bailiff. She immediately burst into tears. Gu Yanran and Tan Dongbang coaxed her together for a long time before she finally calmed down. Tan Guirin cried until she was tired and fell asleep as soon as she got home. Tan Dongbang tucked her in and said with pity, "This child has really been spoiled by her mother and me." He glanced at Gu Yanran. "Yanran, you have to spend more time with little darling in the future. You're strong, gentle, and very capable. I hope little darling can be positively influenced by you." "You flatter me, Prime Minister." Gu Yanran was flattered. She and Tan Dongbang left Tan Guirin's bedroom together. The corridor leading back to the office was empty and deep. Tan Dongbang sighed and said, "If only little darling was like you. I really wish I could have a daughter like you." Gu Yanran stopped in her tracks and looked at Tan Dongbang boldly. "Prime Minister, you know that I don't want to be your daughter. Is it hard for you to be my daughter?" Tan Dongbang looked away uncomfortably. "I'm old enough to be your father." Gu Yanran suddenly became excited. She looked up at Tan Dongbang with undisguised admiration in her eyes and whispered, "I also wish to have a father like you in my dreams, but when I'm really by your side, I'm glad you're not my father. Otherwise, what would I do?" Tan Dongbang closed his eyes and felt all the blood in his body rush to his brain. His eardrums pounded, and he could barely hear anything other than Gu Yanran's slightly raspy voice echoing in his ears. His arm instinctively wrapped around Gu Yanran's waist. Gu Yanran pushed open a door in the hallway and pulled Tan Dongbang inside. The room was dark and the curtains were lowered so they couldn't tell which room it was. However, Tan Dongbang had already pressed Gu Yanran onto the sofa and started kissing her like crazy. He hadn't been like this in a long time since Kai Songyin's accident. When Gu Yanran woke up the next day, she saw Tan Dongbang still sound asleep beside her and was extremely satisfied. She used her hand to draw circles on Tan Dongbang's chest until she saw him wake up. Tan Dongbang wasn't a young man anymore, so his stamina couldn't compare to Yi Xian's. However, the satisfaction he gave Gu Yanran was unparalleled. "You're awake?" Tan Dongbang opened his eyes to see Gu Yanran's beautiful face. He grabbed her hand and leaned down to kiss her. "Yeah." Gu Yanran beamed and sat up from the bed. "Little darling's birthday is coming up soon. I want to throw her a grand birthday party. What do you think?" "Really? I forgot about it. I've been too busy lately." Tan Dongbang also sat up and had an even better impression of Gu Yanran. "I'm very happy that you're good to little darling. I know, but I want you to know that I like little darling because you like her. I'll treasure everything you like." Gu Yanran was very good at sweet-talking, and Tan Dongbang hadn't felt this kind of feeling in many years. After being married to Kai Songyin for so many years, it was like his left hand touching his right hand. It wasn't as exciting as being with Gu Yanran. However, his beloved daughter, Tan Guirin, was still his treasure. Gu Yanran understood this very well, which was why she loved Tan Guirin so much. Also, Tan Guirin was only a daughter. She could get married with some dowry, so it wouldn't hinder her at all. Also, she knew that Tan Dongbang and Kai Songyin had always been trying to matchmake Tan Guirin and Hua Xiaohan. Originally, Gu Yanran thought it was impossible. However, after learning that Gu Nianji and Hua Xiaoheng had broken up, she suddenly felt that it wasn't impossible. Although Hua Xiaoheng wasn't interested in her, it was different for Tan Guiren. Gu Yanran had also clearly seen his attitude toward Tan Guiren at the airport that time. Therefore, as long as Tan Guiren could steal Hua Xiaoheng over, she could completely defeat Gu Nianji. When Gu Yanran thought of this, she became even more enthusiastic. After breakfast, she went to see Tan Guiren. She saw that Tan Guiren was still sitting motionlessly in front of the vanity. "Little darling, what's wrong?" Gu Yanran sat next to her and combed her hair. "It's your birthday in 2 days. Your father said he's going to hold a grand birthday party for you. When the time comes, he's going to invite all the influential people in the imperial capital to celebrate your birthday. How does that sound?" Tan Guiren looked down listlessly. "My mommy's case isn't over yet. How can I be in the mood for a birthday party?" "Little darling, you can't say that." Gu Yanran held her hand and persuaded her. "Do you think a birthday party at the Prime Minister's official residence is just a party? This was also a social occasion, and many important events were decided at such social occasions. If you want your mommy's case to end as soon as possible, you should also happily host this birthday party and then find an opportunity to plead with those influential people." Tan Guiren was convinced. "Really?" "Of course." Gu Yanran held her hand. "I have another piece of news to tell you." "What news? Is it about my mommy?" Tan Guiren asked reflexively. It's about Hua Xiao." "Hua Xiao." Tan Guiren felt like it had been a long time since she heard this form of address. "Yes, I heard that he broke up with his girlfriend, Gu Nianji." "How did you know?" Tan Guiren's eyes widened. "Gu Nianji told me herself. Don't forget that Gu Nianji is my sister." Gu Yanran smiled faintly with a teasing look in her eyes. It was the 4th day of May. They were asking for guaranteed monthly votes and recommendation votes. Chapter 763. Really? When did this happen? Tan Guiren's attention was inevitably diverted. She stared at Gu Yanran with her eyes as pure as a lily. Gu Yanran thought Tan Guiren was very cute like this. She picked up the comb and combed her hair as she said, "It should have been after she returned from Germany. Sigh, although I'm her sister, I can't speak for her on this." "What? Do you know why they broke up?" Tan Guiren asked anxiously. She clutched the robe on her chest, her expression very nervous. Gu Yanran looked at Tan Guiren's pure and beautiful face in the mirror and smiled. "I don't know the specifics, but I know my sister very well and men very well, so I have a general idea of the reason." "What reason?" "They broke up probably after Nianji returned from Germany." Gu Yanran paused and stopped combing. She moved closer to Tan Guiren's ear and whispered, "I'll tell you, but don't tell anyone else." "I definitely won't." Tan Guiren became even more nervous. She met Gu Yanran's eyes in the mirror and almost couldn't breathe. She didn't know why she was so nervous. Perhaps it was because she subconsciously didn't want to ruin anyone's relationship because of her. Gu Yanran bent down and moved closer to Tan Guiren's ear to whisper, "My sister Nianji was kidnapped in Germany and disappeared for almost 2 weeks. After she was found, Hua Xiao broke up with her." Tan Guiren stood up immediately. "What? Are you serious? Hua Xiao broke up with Nianji because she was kidnapped in Germany? How could that be? How could that be?" Gu Yanran froze. She didn't understand why Tan Guiren had such a big reaction. She knew Tan Guiren had disappeared for a period of time in the United States because the Tans had hyped it up in the Wuxia media to make Tan Dongbang a household name. However, she always thought it was a ploy by the Tans and that Tan Guiren's disappearance was their own arrangement. The Tans forced Hua Xiaoheng to go to New York to save Tan Guiren. This was a top secret, so not many people in the upper echelons knew about it, much less Gu Yanran. As a result, she had no idea what Tan Guiren had gone through during her disappearance in the United States. Seeing that Tan Guiren was almost hysterical, Gu Yanran was a bit confused but still chose to comfort her. Holding her hand, she nodded and said, "Why not? I understand. Do you want to?" However, she then thought about how she shouldn't be so familiar with Gu Nianji's kidnapping, so she shut her mouth and said, "Actually, I was just guessing. Maybe it wasn't because of that, or maybe it was because of something else. For example, Hua Xiao met someone more suitable, so he broke up with the wrong person." Tan Guiren finally exhaled and blushed. Her eyes sparkled as she sat back down on the soft white chair in front of her vanity. She murmured, "Hua Xiao found someone more suitable? Do you have a girlfriend now?" "I have to ask you about that." Gu Yanran smiled and patted her face. Did you forget that Hua Xiao personally went to pick you up? He even took care of you at the airport. Don't you understand? Tan Guiran smiled sheepishly and shook her head. Actually, Hua Xiao and I don't have much of a relationship. Really, we're just normal friends. Hua Xiaoheng had never acted more than a normal friend to her. She knew that very well. However, she also knew that she secretly liked Hua Xiaoheng. But even though she liked him, she never confessed to Hua Xiaoheng or pestered him. Because she knew he had a girlfriend. A good girl wouldn't be a third party. No matter how much Tan Guiran liked Hua Xiaoheng, she wouldn't break them up. So when Gu Yinran said that, Tan Guiran instinctively objected. Actually, I'm really not close to Hua Xiao. His breakup with Gu Nianji should be a problem between them. I don't think it has anything to do with anyone else. I know. Of course it's a problem between them. Although Gu Nianji is my sister, I won't stand on her side. Gu Yinran patted Tan Guiran's head. I really wish you were my sister. Unfortunately, it's just a thought. You can be my sister. Tan Guiran's eyes brightened. Why don't we become sworn sisters? You can be my god-sister and I'll be your god-sister. Oh, ah. Gu Yinran couldn't help but laugh. She covered her mouth and laughed so hard that tears were about to fall. Little darling, oh little darling, you're such a clown. What era are we in? Sworn sisters. Little darling, are you living 100 years ago? Tan Guiran blushed even more from Gu Yinran's laughter. She leaned over the vanity and covered her face. Gu Yinran saw that Tan Guiran was embarrassed and finally stopped laughing. Okay, I won't tease you anymore. Little darling, your birthday happens to be this weekend. Do you want your birthday party to be on Friday or Saturday? Or Sunday is fine too. Tan Guiran's birthday was officially on Saturday. Of course she wanted to choose her official day. If it's not too much trouble, let's make it Saturday. Everyone is free, so there's no need to apply for another day off. Tan Guiran thought about it and looked up at Gu Yinran. Is that okay? Of course. Little darling, you're our little princess. Whatever you say is fine. Gu Yinran was very satisfied with Tan Guiran's dependence. Okay, give me the guest list you want to invite. I'll make the arrangements. We must give you a grand birthday party on Saturday. Very quickly, the invitations to Tan Guiran's 25th birthday party were sent out. After all, it was the new Prime Minister's only daughter's first birthday party, so all the officials and nobles in the imperial capital were very respectful and all expressed that they would attend. In a short period of time, invitations to the Prime Minister's daughter's birthday party were hard to come by. Some government officials who didn't receive invitations were too embarrassed to show their faces and wanted nothing more than to buy them from the black market at a high price. But how could they allow invitations to the Prime Minister's official residence to reach the black market? They couldn't even pass a background check. Gu Yinran was responsible for issuing invitations to the birthday party this time. So many people came to fawn over her in hopes that she would be magnanimous and send out an extra invitation. To Gu Yinran it was as easy as lifting a finger. But to the officials who didn't receive an invitation, it was like a lifesaver. Although Gu Yinran controlled the internal resources of the Prime Minister's official residence, she was a very amiable person. She never lost her composure, nor did she have a high and mighty attitude. Furthermore, she was very rich. She was the daughter of a wealthy family to begin with, and not just any ordinary wealthy family. Therefore, everyone's impression of her kept improving. Taking advantage of Tan Guiran's birthday party, Gu Yinran quietly made a name for herself and successfully established herself in the upper echelons of society in the imperial capital. At least everyone knew that Prime Minister Tan's personal assistant, Miss Gu, had a good background, was beautiful and was very capable. However, she didn't put on airs and was very easy to talk to. She helped Prime Minister Tan build a good impression. Tan Dongbang's poll numbers, which had been pulled down because of Kai Songyin's case, slowly climbed up again. On Friday afternoon, Tan Dongbang looked at the latest poll numbers sent by his subordinates and said to Gu Yinran emotionally, "It's all thanks to Yinran. Otherwise, this situation wouldn't have been so easily reversed." Prime Minister, you're too kind. I only did what I was supposed to do and I did it willingly. Gu Yinran smiled humbly and gently. She didn't have Kai Songyin's forcefulness at all, but she had Kai Songyin's ability. Tan Dongbang couldn't be more satisfied with her. He took her with him everywhere he went. Gu Yinran single-handedly took care of all of his outfits, travel arrangements, as well as the internal affairs of the Prime Minister's official residence and his daughter, Tan Guiran. Gu Yinran thought about it with mixed feelings. In the past, when her mother sent her to study in England, she had been very unhappy. She didn't expect that the professional knowledge she had learned in England would finally be put to use. On Thursday night, Gu Yanran returned to her third Ring Road apartment to pack her things. She hadn't been back for a long time. Downstairs was where Hua Xiaoheng kept Gu Nianji's mistress, but Gu Nianji hadn't been there since she returned from Germany. This was also one of the reasons why Gu Yanran believed Gu Nianji. If they hadn't fallen out, would Hua Xiaoheng have resisted sleeping with her for so long? The apartment downstairs was the irrefutable proof that he was keeping a mistress. This is the first night watch today. Flipping back, there was a second update. It was the fourth watch today. I'm looking for a guaranteed monthly ticket. Moi. Chapter 764. Using the key card to open the door, Gu Yanran turned on the wall lamp in the corner. The light in the pitch-black room suddenly brightened. A person sitting on the gray sofa in the middle of the living room instinctively raised her arm to block the glaring light. Gu Yanran finally realized there was someone in the room. Upon closer inspection, it was Yi Xian. Gu Yanran's heart that had been in her throat settled back down. She slowly walked over. "Xian, you're here?" Yi Xian lowered his arm and looked up at Gu Yanran. Then he hugged her waist and rested his head on her waist. He murmured, "You're finally back. Yanran, why did you take so long to come back?" "Xian, I have work to do now. I'm very busy." Gu Yanran smiled warmly as she caressed the back of Yi Xian's head. Very gently, her fingers brushed past the back of his neck. Yi Xian felt goosebumps all over his body, but he didn't feel uncomfortable. Instead, he felt a rare sense of excitement. He couldn't help hugging her tighter and even pulling her against him. However, Gu Yanran didn't let him pull her down. She whispered, "Xian, my body doesn't feel too good." Yi Xian slowly let go and moved to the sofa. "Sit. Don't just stand there." Gu Yanran sat down next to him and took out an invitation from her bag. "This is an invitation to the birthday party at the Prime Minister's official residence on Saturday night. Are you free?" Yi Xian looked at the invitation and raised a brow. "Tang Gairen's birthday? Yanran, you're even worried about Tang Gairen's birthday. What exactly are you doing at the Prime Minister's official residence?" "I'm the Prime Minister's personal assistant. Cabinet matters have nothing to do with me, but the internal affairs of the Prime Minister's official residence, the Prime Minister's schedule and his daughter, Tang Gairen, are all handled by me." Gu Yanran propped up her head with one hand and stroked Yi Xian's arm with the other. "Although I have many subordinates, I'm not at ease. I have to see everything myself, so it's even more tiring." Yi Xian carefully studied Gu Yanran and saw that her eyes were blue and her face was pale. She truly looked exhausted. "You too. What do subordinates do? If you have to do everything, you won't be able to finish it even if you don't eat, drink, or sleep." As Yi Xian spoke, he moved to Gu Yanran's side to massage her. Gu Yanran closed her eyes comfortably and quickly fell asleep. Seeing that she was sleeping so soundly, Yi Xian couldn't bear to disturb her, so he carried her to the bedroom. On Friday morning, Gu Yanran slept all the way until dawn. When she woke up, she looked at her watch and screamed, "It's too late, too late." She quickly lifted the blankets and ran to the bathroom. She hurriedly washed up and went to the Prime Minister's residence without even saying goodbye to Yi Xian. Yi Xian looked at the breakfast he had just made and shook his head helplessly. He sat down to eat alone and then turned on his computer to continue tracking the IP addresses of several secondary accounts on Weibo. He also wanted to know where the call to the TV station to get rid of the dean of a university's law department had come from. He looked at the program running on the computer and closed his eyes to rest. The facilities here were too basic. If it was in the United States, using the large supercomputer in his office in the United States to calculate, it would have been solved 800 years ago. Half a month had passed, and it was still calculating. Yi Xian sighed and simply set the alarm clock before lying on the sofa to sleep. On Friday evening, after Gu Nianji finished class, she carried her backpack and rode her bicycle from the academic building back to the dormitory. Just as she reached the corner of the dormitory building, the window of a black Mercedes-Benz SUV rolled down. Gu Yanran, wearing Prada floating cloud sunglasses, stuck her head out of the car and waved at her with a smile. "Nianji, come here." Gu Nianji was speechless. She held the bike with both hands and propped one foot on the ground to stop. Looking up at the car, she asked calmly, "What's the matter?" "Nianji, of course there's something. It's a good thing." Gu Yanran continued to wave from the car. Gu Nianji clearly sensed that Gu Yanran was different from before. In the past, when she saw Gu Nianji, no matter if she was cold or affectionate, she always had a sense of caution. It was as if she was afraid of offending Gu Nianji but couldn't help wanting to stab her. But now Gu Yanran's smile was very sincere and magnanimous. There was a sense of incongruity to it. Ever since Gu Nianji found out that it was Gu Yanran who stabbed her in the back when she was at her most vulnerable, and that Gu Xiangguan wasn't her biological father, she couldn't even be bothered to be perfunctory with Gu Yanran. "Miss Gu, if you have something to say, just say it. I still have to go to night study." Gu Nianji had no intention of getting out of the car. She still propped one foot on the ground. The light from the setting sun shone through the gap between two buildings and fell on Gu Nianji's left leg, which was propped up on the ground. She wore a pair of tight jeans, and her slender leg looked like an exquisite piece of art under the golden sunlight. Gu Yanran's gaze involuntarily fell on Gu Nianji's leg and quietly looked at it for a while. Gu Nianji grew impatient. She stomped on the ground and got on the bike to leave. Only then did Gu Yanran call out, "Wait!" She opened the door and got out. As soon as Gu Yanran got out, a few bodyguards dressed in black and wearing sunglasses surrounded her. They looked at the students walking in and out of the dormitory building cautiously. Gu Nianji pursed her lips and propped her foot on the ground again to wait for Gu Yanran to walk over. Gu Yanran stopped in front of her and chuckled. "Nianji, you're so arrogant." "Haha, I'm just talking to my younger sister and saying that my younger sister is arrogant." "Miss Gu, who's the arrogant one?" Gu Nianji rang the car bell nonchalantly. "If you have something to say, say it quickly. I won't be able to get anything to eat at the cafeteria if I'm late." "You haven't had dinner yet? Come, I'll take you to dinner." Gu Yanran invited her warmly and tried to take her hand. Gu Nianji raised her hand and pushed Gu Yanran's hand away. She coughed and said, "Gu Yanran, what exactly do you want?" "I'm really busy. I still have to night study." "You call going to the evening self-study session very busy? Nianji, you're getting more and more interesting." Gu Yanran covered her mouth and laughed. "Don't be naughty. I have something to tell you." "Go ahead. I'm all ears." Gu Nianji turned to look at her. "Miss Gu, it's getting late." "Okay, I'll make it short," Gu Yanran said as she lowered her head to take out an invitation from her bag. "Tomorrow is the birthday of the Prime Minister's daughter, Miss Tan Guiran. This is the invitation to the birthday party at the Prime Minister's official residence tomorrow night. Nianji, it wasn't easy for me to prepare one for you. You have to come." "No, I'm not free." Gu Nianji refused immediately and didn't even look at the invitation in Gu Yanran's hand. "You're such a stubborn child." Gu Yanran glared at her. "What's wrong? Are you angry at me? Angry at me for revealing that you're not father's biological daughter? Actually, what's wrong with that? Although you're an adopted daughter, father loves you more than he loves me. You should be happy." Gu Nianji only wanted to look up at the sky and sigh. However, Gu Yanran always acted like a caring sister in front of others. Earlier, she had been stubborn and refused to go to Gu Yanran's car. If she continued to argue with Gu Yanran now, people would probably really think she was being stubborn. So Gu Nianji pursed her lips and said patiently, "It's nothing. I'm really busy. I wasted some time in Germany, so I'm making up for it now." "You think I don't know? But tomorrow is Saturday and you don't have classes. Go and have a look and say happy birthday to Miss Tan." Gu Yanran pushed her arm. "I'm helping you pave the way. You just broke up with Wuxia. If you don't know more people from high society, how will you earn money in the future? You're a lawyer, so you have to know some big clients, right?" Gu Nianji was speechless. Gu Yanran saw that Gu Nianji didn't say anything and thought she had heard what she said. She relaxed. "Okay, don't be angry with me. I'm very busy right now. I'm Prime Minister Tan's personal assistant. His official residence and his work schedule are all handled by me, including the Prime Minister's daughter, Tan Guiran. I can't help it. If I don't spend as much time with you, don't blame me." Gu Nianji finally looked at her strangely. "You? Prime Minister Tan's personal assistant?" She took it seriously. "Yes." Gu Yanran took out the badge she used to enter the Prime Minister's official residence for Gu Nianji to see. "Here, this is my identification. Come to the Prime Minister's official residence tomorrow, and I'll show you around. It's actually a very ordinary residence. It's not as luxurious as our family's residence in Barbados." This was the second update of the day, and the monthly pass was 500 plus updates. Flipping back, there was still the third update. Chapter 765. Gu Nianji listened patiently for a long time, but the expression on her face calmed down. She had an indifferent smile on her face and Gu Yanran couldn't see through her. Are you done? Gu Nianji looked up at her and knew that if she insisted on not going now, Gu Yanran would nag at her for a long time. She reached out to take the invitation. Okay, I'll go tomorrow when I'm free. Great. Nianji, when you get there tomorrow, just tell them my name. I'll send someone to bring you in. It was obvious that Gu Yanran was genuinely happy. Gu Nianji, she looked at the invitation in her hand. This invitation still can't let me in? He had to look for Miss Gu to get in? Then why would he need an invitation? I'll just report your name tomorrow. Gu Nianji slapped the invitation back to Gu Yanran. Gu Yanran quickly corrected herself and winked at her. Of course not, Nianji. Of course you can go with this invitation, but if you say my name and say you're my sister, they'll be more respectful to you. Also, you don't have to wait in line and can come in immediately. Isn't that good? Didn't you say you were busy? Okay, I'll check tomorrow's schedule. As she spoke, she stuffed the invitation into her bag and stepped onto the pedals. I'll be going then. Okay, you have to come tomorrow? Gu Yanran waved at her and returned to her car. Gu Nianji parked her bicycle in the shed and looked up to see Gu Yanran's car drive away proudly. There were even motorcycles leading the way. It was quite a scene. Gu Nianji pouted. She was speechless at Gu Yanran's habit of using her connections to intimidate others. She carried her backpack and walked out of the bike shed. Just as she was about to enter the dormitory building, she heard someone calling her from behind. This time she recognized Yin Shixiang's voice. Gu Nianji's face lit up. She turned around and opened her arms to Yin Shixiang, who was standing at the bottom of the stairs. Are you here to see Qiqi? If it weren't for the fact that someone was watching him from behind, he would have cried and complained to Gu Nianji. He had come to see Qiqi. He had been forced to come and see Qiqi. Of course he was willing to endure the hardship and couldn't ask for more. Nianji, it's like this. Yin Shixiang smiled as he took out 2 invitations from his pocket. These are invitations to the Prime Minister's daughter's birthday party tomorrow. I want to invite Qiqi to go with me. Gu Nianji's eyes lit up and she patted Yin Shixiang's shoulder vigorously. Not bad, brother Xiong. Good luck. But Qiqi said on the phone that she's not used to that kind of occasion and doesn't want to go. Yin Shixiang smiled bitterly. I was wondering if you could help me out and attend the banquet at the Prime Minister's residence with Qiqi? Gu Nianji recalled that Gu Yanran had specially given her an invitation. She rolled her eyes and said, Sure, but can I see your invitation? Yin Shixiang quickly handed the invitation to Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji glanced at it. It was basically the same as the invitation Gu Yanran had given her, but hers had her name on it. Yin Shixiang's invitation didn't have her name on it. Now that was interesting. Gu Nianji originally didn't want to go at all. She didn't even need to think to know that Gu Yanran had specially sent an invitation for her to attend an event that wouldn't make her feel comfortable. Why would she make things difficult for herself? However, seeing Yin Shixiang rarely speak and going with Qiqi to see the world, especially to see the real people they had dissed on Weibo, seemed very interesting. Gu Nianji thought about it and asked casually, Tangairan's birthday party? What about her mother, Kai Songyin? Will she attend? She knew that Kai Songyin had been temporarily detained because she had lost control of her emotions in court that day. So this time, Tangairan's birthday party wasn't hosted by her biological mother. It was hosted by Gu Yanran, a person with a strange identity. Yin Shixiang smiled secretly and looked around before whispering in Gu Nianji's ear. This is the birthday gift we specially prepared for Miss Tan. At that time, not only will Miss Tan eat a whale, but even the Prime Minister and his pretty assistant might eat a whale. They have great appetites. They can even eat a whale from the deep sea. Gu Nianji sneered lightly. Thinking of Gu Yanran's arrogant attitude earlier, she suddenly became interested in tomorrow's party. She looked down to take the invitation from Yin Shixiang and said casually, This was Huo Xiao's idea, right? How did you know? Yin Shixiang pretended to look terrified, and even pretended to look around. Gu Nianji immediately understood that Huo Xiaoheng should be nearby. She immediately stopped smiling and put the invitation back into her bag. I have to go now. I still have to study at night today, so I can only go tomorrow after I finish my report. Brother Xiong, you better pray to God that I can finish my report successfully today. Otherwise, I won't be able to bring your Qiqi to the party tomorrow. Yin Shixiang chuckled at Gu Nianji's words, but he accepted the words your Qiqi surprisingly well. Gu Nianji returned to the dormitory and saw that Ma Qiqi had already returned. She was hugging snacks and watching TV in the living room. Seeing Gu Nianji come in, Ma Qiqi raised the snack bucket in her hand and asked, Do you want some? Cashews. Gu Nianji shook her head. It's too oily. I don't want to eat it. I haven't had dinner yet. Putting down her bag, Gu Nianji took out an invitation and placed it in front of Ma Qiqi. Here, Qiqi. Brother Xiong asked me to give this to you at the birthday party at the Prime Minister's official residence tomorrow. Oh, I told him I wouldn't go. Ma Qiqi shrugged. I'm just a normal citizen. I don't go to those kinds of events for officials and nobles. Don't you think he's asking me to go and embarrass myself? Gu Nianji found it funny and walked over to sit next to her. Pinching her perky little nose, she said, Don't say that, Qiqi. Officials and nobles are actually nothing special. Also, don't you want to see the person we fought against on Weibo in real life? Ma Qiqi glanced at her and threw a round cashews into her mouth. I've never been to an event like that before. I'm so sorry. I'll go. Are you going? Gu Nianji could tell that Ma Qiqi was just a little scared. She should actually be interested, not to mention Yin Shixiang. Hearing that Gu Nianji was going, Ma Qiqi's eyes immediately lit up. I'll go. Of course I'll go. She happily put away the invitation and stood up. Okay, then you have to come with me tomorrow. I'm a puppy if I don't go. It's okay if I'm a puppy. Woof woof woof. It's so cute. Gu Nianji blinked at Ma Qiqi with her big expressive eyes and barked like a puppy. Ma Qiqi almost fainted from the shock. Okay. I'm scared of you. Anyway, you have to take me tomorrow. Otherwise I won't go. Ma Qiqi said as she carried the snack bucket back to her room. As soon as she entered, she closed the door with her back and leaned against it. Taking out her phone, she texted Yin Shixiang, It's done. Yin Shixiang was sitting in the car when he received Ma Qiqi's text. He was so happy he turned to Hua Xiaoheng, who was sitting in the back seat. Hua Xiao, it's done. Hua Xiaoheng nodded calmly and asked Yin Shixiang, What about Kai Songyin? Is the bail procedure done? It's done. Yin Shixiang stepped on the accelerator and started the car. He sighed. She's so unlucky. I heard from the court that she didn't actually have to be locked up for so long. She could be released the next day. But the Tan's lawyer seemed to have forgotten about her, and Tan Dongbang didn't say anything either. She's been in detention all this time. Hua Xiaoheng chuckled. Isn't that perfect? If she was released immediately, how would there be all this drama to watch? Yin Shixiang thought it was funny, but he thought of Gu Yanran. He still looked at the rearview mirror and said, Hua Xiao, what about Gu Yanran? She has quite a lot of power now. Yeah, leave her with Nianji. Hua Xiaoheng raised his wrist to look at his watch disapprovingly. It's getting late. Let's hurry back for the regular meeting. Their regular meetings were all held on Friday nights. After the meeting they would go on duty and spend the weekend. Gu Nianji wrote her report the entire night and didn't sleep until 6 in the morning. Because the birthday party at the Prime Minister's official residence was at night, Gu Nianji planned to sleep the entire day. On Saturday morning, Hua Xiaoheng called her, but no one picked up. In the end, he called Ma Qiqi and found out that she stayed up all night to write her report but slept the entire day. Hua Xiaoheng was speechless. Was she trying to escape him perfectly? This was the third update for the day and the monthly pass was 1,000 plus updates. He flipped to the third update. Chapter 766. Hua Xiaoheng hung up and didn't want to disturb Gu Nianji. He was also very busy with work, so he always had time to call her. However, Gu Nianji was either studying or sleeping, so she rarely answered his calls. 2 weeks had passed in a flash and he hadn't seen her. Hua Xiaoheng turned on his computer and wanted to check his work schedule for the day, but he realized he was a bit distracted. His eyes kept glancing at his phone, but he finally stopped himself. However, staying up late was a bad habit, so he had to remind her when he saw her at the birthday banquet at the Prime Minister's official residence. Gu Nianji had slept very soundly during the day because she hadn't slept all night. Yijichu also called her in the afternoon, but seeing that no one picked up, he also called Ma Qiqi. Ma Qiqi also told him that Gu Nianji had stayed up late last night and only fell asleep this morning. After Yijichu put down the phone, he immediately drove to a restaurant outside and ordered takeout to personally deliver to her dorm. It was already around 4 in the afternoon when he arrived at Gu Nianji's dorm. Yijichu called Gu Nianji again and she picked up this time. Her voice still sounded sleepy as she sat on the bed and rubbed her eyes. Professor He, what's up? Yijichu replied dryly, I brought you some soup. Do you want to come down and get it? Soup. Gu Nianji immediately felt hungry. She had slept all day and hadn't eaten anything. I'll be right down. Thank you, Professor He. Gu Nianji happily put on her clothes and went downstairs. She saw Hijichu wearing a plain suit and a light blue tie. He stood elegantly in front of the dorm building, and many girls were sneaking glances at him. However, Hijichu wasn't impatient at all. Gu Nianji walked out with a smile and extended her hand. "Thank you, Professor He." Hijichu placed a set of insulated lunch boxes with hot dishes and soup in her hand. "Eat while it's hot." He then asked her, "There's a birthday banquet at the Prime Minister's official residence tonight. Do you want to go?" He asked casually as if he could take Gu Nianji any time she wanted to go. Gu Nianji quickly asked, "You also got an invitation?" "Yeah, Gu Yanran gave me one." Hijichu heard her say also. "Don't tell me you already have an invitation?" "Yes, Gu Yanran also gave me a copy. She personally delivered it to me so that I could see how proud she was." Gu Nianji was a little helpless. That arrogance was unimaginable. Hijichu smiled. This kind of person is short-sighted. If you don't want to acknowledge her, then don't acknowledge her. Huh. That won't do. Gu Nianji shook her head and said seriously, "It's not a matter of whether I admit it or not. Since she and I are both daughters of the Gu family, even if I hate her, I will not abandon my identity. Just like you said, legally speaking, I am Gu Xiangwen's daughter. What's wrong with that? Why would I want to avoid her? Does she deserve it?" "That's right." Hijichu rubbed her head. "So are you going to the Prime Minister's official residence tonight?" "Go, why wouldn't I go? She tried so hard to get me to go. If I don't go, wouldn't it be a waste of her careful preparations?" Gu Nianji saw that everyone around her seemed to have been invited, so she understood Gu Yanran's intentions. However, she was not afraid of Gu Yanran at all. She didn't want to talk to her before because she didn't want trouble. However, if Gu Yanran insisted on making things difficult for her, she would not be lenient. She would not cause trouble, but she was not afraid of trouble either. If anyone dared to mess with her, she would make sure that person would avoid her for the rest of their lives. They would never want to mess with her a second time. Hijichu nodded. "Don't be afraid. I will also go tonight." He would keep an eye on Gu Yanran. If he found out that she had anything to do with those dirty tricks, he would not forgive her. Gu Nianji returned to the dormitory with the lunch box and happened to see Ma Chichi coming out of her room. "Wow, what is this? Smells so good." Ma Chichi could not move when she saw the food. Gu Nianji opened the lunch box to see a big bowl of stewed ribs with lotus root, a bowl of sea cucumber millet porridge, a box of steamed eggs with sea cucumber, and a bowl of chicken sea cucumber. "This is a sea cucumber banquet?" Ma Chichi's eyes lit up as she clicked her tongue. "Professor, he prepared this for you? He must know that you stayed up too late last night. These sea cucumber dishes are nourishing and especially suitable for people who often stay up late. Come, let's eat together." Gu Nianji took out a bowl and chopsticks to scoop a bowl of soup for Ma Chichi. The two of them began eating the food Hijichu had bought. It had to be said that Hijichu knew Gu Nianji very well. The food he had bought was for two people. He knew that she would share it with Ma Chichi. The amount of food wasn't actually a lot and the taste was especially delicious. The sea cucumber was cooked to perfection and wasn't dry at all. It felt like it melted in the mouth, but it wasn't so soft that it was chewy. She could also tell that there was only a little salt in the dishes. There were no seasonings like MSG, chicken powder, mushroom powder, or anything like that. It was completely the aroma of the ingredients themselves. After finishing the dinner, Ma Chichi collapsed on the sofa and rubbed her stomach. "I think I'm stuffed. Why would I go to a birthday banquet today? I definitely won't be able to eat anything." Gu Nianji snickered and pointed at Ma Chichi. "You're really thinking too much. How can a birthday banquet be a proper dinner? It's all alcohol, fruit, and some buffet food. It's not delicious at all. Also, the guests aren't there to eat. They're there to socialize, understand?" "I don't understand." Ma Chichi shook her head honestly. "I told you I'm not going, then we're not going?" Gu Nianji said deliberately. "We'll just be wallflowers if we go anyway. I don't know many people there." Ma Chichi thought about it and muttered, "Then let's go. I've never been to an event like this before. I can brag about it for a year if I go." Gu Nianji laughed until her stomach hurt. She leaned on the table and screamed for a while before returning to her room to shower and change. It was already dark when it was past 7. The streetlights outside the dormitory building lit up and cast a dim yellow glow. Gu Nianji was wearing trousers and a light purple wool top with puffy sleeves. The neckline was layered in a medieval scarf style. The chest was loose, but the waist area suddenly shrank, making her breasts slimmer and waist slimmer. She wore a pair of thin gray wool pants with straight seams on her long legs. They were tucked into mid-calf boots. She looked very capable. She didn't have much makeup on. She only put on a layer of bright pink lipstick. Her face immediately lit up. Machichi was wearing a sky blue Chanel autumn/winter suit. The skirt was just above her knees, revealing her long legs. On her feet were a pair of matching Manolo shoes, Blanik high heels and a long coat that reached her knees. It was already the end of October. The nights in the imperial capital were already very cold. Yin Shixiang and Hua Xiaoheng drove to Gunyenji's dormitory and saw Gunyenji and Machichi waiting at the entrance. Yin Shixiang happily waved for them to come over. However, only Machichi ran over and got into the car. Gunyenji walked to the other car. Hua Xiaoheng sat in the back seat and looked at the car in front with a deep gaze. He recognized the license plate. It was Hijichu's car. Your professor, he is also attending the birthday banquet at the Prime Minister's official residence? Hua Xiaoheng asked Machichi calmly. Yes, Professor, he even brought us dinner tonight. It was all sea cucumber. It was so delicious. It was the 4th night watch of the day. There were a total of 4 night watches today. Please guarantee monthly votes and recommendation votes. Oh, intersection. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.